Hey everybody, welcome to We've Got Ward, a Doof Media podcast series where we expertly dissect and discuss Ward, Wildbow's return to the world of parahumans. My name is Matt Freeman.
And I'm Scott Daly, and
No, stop! Shit. I retched him. It's everywhere. Not again. Wait, he's still breathing. Scott, say something.
This is the weekly podcast where Matt and I eagerly dive into Wildbow's world of accidental mom-crushing, long-awaited catharsis, and alien-based death powers as we analyze and interpret this ongoing web serial. This week, we are reaching what seems to be the climax of Arc 12 Heavens with chapters 12.8 and 12.9. It's Team Vicky versus Team Cradle, red versus blue, sternum punching versus limb slicing. Who will win? Matt, what do you think of these two chapters?
These are some intense climactic chapters. It's basically just like a 2-chapter long fight.
Yeah.
In fact, it extends into the previous chapter too. But there's even more fighting and less talking here. So it's just very intense. And, these are the kind of chapters where we tend to, in a relative sense, skim over the combat and focus more on like what's happening under the surface with the characters, what's going on, why are they doing the things they're doing. And this is probably going to be no exception to that. I mean, we're going to talk about some of the combat, but going to be mostly focusing on what is going on with these characters. Yeah,
and we've said this many times before. We'll say it many times in the future. One of my favorite aspects of this book is even on these chapters that are heavy action based, you guys can still write 15 pages of stuff to talk about. So yeah. Even though, yes, we're going to be skipping over the minute details of the fighting back and forth, there's still a lot to say.
Yeah. All right. So quick announcements first. March Madness continues. What round are we on, Scott?
We are on the Elite 8. We are down to 8 competitors, 4 matches this week. Voting is live right now. So if you haven't voted yet, head on over to doofmedia.com/marchmadness and put in your votes.
Stick around, and Scott and I are going to make our votes at the end of this episode, I believe.
Yeah. Yep. As usual, at the end of the episode, we'll recap last week's matches and then make our picks for next week's.
Cool. All right, let's get on into the chapters.
Let's do it.
We begin with chapter 12.8. And here the chapter begins with painting the scene for us. There's a lot of description that evokes light. We have this town that has the appearance of being on fire because Subside has surrounded the area with motes of red light. And then Byron answers, the red light with his own constellations of blue light. So we have red and blue light, which harkens back to those emergency red and blue lights from a few chapters ago.
Yeah, I love that. We kind of start. That was the beginning of the arc, right?
I believe so.
Or maybe the end of the last arc. One of those two, where she was sitting there and red and blue lights were flashing, and now here we are at the end of this whole thing, and still the flashing red or blue lights.
Yep.
I really like this. I love we're setting the stage. This is the final battle, as it were, and we've got good guys on one side, bad guys on the other side. They're color coded with these motes. And then in the middle, we have this town that's kind of been thrust into this whole thing. And one of the big linchpins of this early part of this first chapter is, who are these people going to end up siding with? These people that are trapped in the middle of our two groups.
Yeah. Right. That's something the beginning of the chapter dwells on a lot is the fact that the whole town smells like cigarette smoke because like everyone is outside kind of readying themselves for what's about to happen.
Yeah. And I think the most interesting part of this whole imagery to me is what Victoria is saying regarding Capricorn's motes. As she says, as glad as I was to know we had something, the color of the lights cut into my eyes. my eyes' ability to peer through the dark. The bright blue left spots in my vision and trails that persisted even when I looked away. So we have these motes that Byron is creating to kind of like counter the red motes that are floating around from the enemy. This thing specific to bolster their forces, and that same thing is blinding Victoria, making her less able to see through the darkness, and is blinding her.
Yeah, I mean, once again, continuing this idea that light has its pros and its cons, right? Like it provides illumination, but if you look at it, it blinds you. We're actually going to see an explicit instance of light being used against them in this chapter.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing that I like about that is it gets you thinking about, okay, well, we have this thing that's clearly imagery and symbolism, right? We've talked about color and light and the importance of all these things. And now we have this light that is serving a purpose to bolster them against their enemies, but at the same time is blinding them, is hurting them. Mm-hmm. And that gets you into this whole thing that I think one of the things we're seeing in this chapter is, Matt, our characters here are winning finally. The tide is turning, but they're all going through some pretty heavy shit. And I think maybe that's one thing that this blinding blue light that is both helping and hurting them is serving, that they are taking steps and it is helping them in combat. But what is the after effect on them? How is this also damaging them while it's helping them win?
Yeah. Hopefully we're able to take the time to talk about how each member breakthrough has been kind of crushed by the events of this arc, one by one. But it's worth stating up front that like that's definitely something that's been happening in the background. Yeah. Or in the foreground.
But both.
Yeah, right. So Etna is not with Blue Stocking's team. That's something that Victoria notices. Probably because Victoria accidentally broke her neck earlier. Yeah, sure. We'll call that my speculation for the day.
Oh, is that going to be your official speculation? Yeah, I mean, like, I think that's an interesting note that she's like looking out and she sees Blue Stocking's team and it's like, oh, Etna's not there. It's like, well, yeah, don't you remember how you left that whole engagement?
Right. You suplexed her from an unspecified flying altitude. I mean, I honestly wouldn't be surprised because she just kind of body slams her into a hill and just leaves. And we don't really know, like, okay.
I don't think she's dead. I do think she's probably pretty severely injured. And I wonder, like, this seems like a small, like, throwaway moment, right? It's just like, oh, Etna's not here. But I wonder if, like, this is Victoria kind of in her own way dealing with her stuff. Like, I wonder if in the back of her head and maybe in her subconscious, there's a level of concern or guilt that, ooh, maybe I went too far on that one. And so it's just like, let's check and see where Etna's is. Oh, Etna's not here. Okay. That might mean nothing. That might mean something. Maybe. Right. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I it seems like a small thing, but I think it's worth pointing out that like she becomes increasingly vicious in these two chapters.
Yeah, we're channeling some Glory Girl in these chapters.
And I can't help but connect that to the fact that, you know, recently she just did this fairly savage takedown of Etna that was like it wasn't like it was uncalled for. It was just like it was not her normal routine. It was like I'm just gonna fucking put her down. I don't have time for this shit, you know?
And so. I think that's a good general thing to say at the top of this week's entire conversation is everything we say about the stuff that Victoria does to these bad guys. I don't think either of us are trying to challenge the fact that it was correct or necessary. We are just commenting on the change in what our character is doing, right? Yeah. And again, like we're talking about with the flashing motes, what that might be saying about her state of mind as she is doing these things that are on the surface completely justifiable.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, she doesn't spend paragraphs of like warrior monk cogitation in in whether this is the right action or not. It's just and again, to your point, part of it is because there's no time for that. They're in a life or death situation. So
yeah, and I mean the thing that jumped out at me about Edna specifically, and I know we're now re-talking about last week's chapters, but that, I mean, she was angry, right? And this like, it was calculated in that she was just at to a point where she was like, fuck this, I'm specifically mad at this one person, and maybe put a little too much oomph in there just because of my frustration, right? Mm-hmm. Again, totally needs to take this person down. She's throwing globs of magma at people, but yeah, she's getting more violent. She's hurting people harder, and we are going to see that throughout this entire chapter.
Yeah. So what's happening now is Foil and Thing 1 discuss sniping Cradle through the trees as he approaches on his mech, but neither can guarantee a clear shot, and the heroes need him alive so that he can reverse the dismemberment effect. So I actually like this element that up front in this chapter, this nice wrinkle is added that the good guys aren't just at a disadvantage in terms of being outnumbered and outgunned. They also can't even kill the main bad guy who now has extra powers, who's trying to kill them. They have to get a non-lethal takedown because they need the information.
Man, isn't being a good guy just exhausting?
Yeah, I know.
It's like you always have to fight with your hands tied behind your back, always.
Yeah.
Doing the right thing is always harder than doing the wrong thing.
It's true.
Being bad is quicker, easier, more seductive.
Yeah.
But not stronger.
I mean, Worm protagonist was pretty strong. We'll move on from that comment.
Did you just compare her to the dark side of the Force, Matt? How dare you?
It's hard not to. So Tattletale gives them direction on who they should try to pick off. She says Myosha in all caps, who Victoria had been calling Red, the woman with the machinery power, the machinery shaker power, and Prong, who stabs people with light horns. It made just in this moment, I was wondering, like, is Tattletale picking out these two based on the danger they pose, or is she factoring in knowledge about like them being particularly bad people? And I wasn't really sure, because I'm not really sure at this point in time how Tattletale evaluates such things. I would lean toward her being like, take them out because they're the biggest threat.
Yeah.
But anyway, shortly after this, when the shooting starts, Victoria does give Foil and the Harbingers the go ahead to shoot those two. And
we never see that happen, correct? We never see them taken out, but they also are not in the fight, really.
Yeah. Myosha gets, I think, shot in the leg by Foil.
Yeah, you're right.
And I don't know what happens to Prong.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, I think this is fine. Like, they're having a very rational discussion about what they should do. It just felt a little weird for me to people like casually talk about like, okay, which one of these are we cool with assassinating? This one? No, not that one. Do this one. And then we have Tattletale come in with this thing about Prong, where she says wanted to hire him once. He said no. He was busy, so fuck him. And I'm not saying she picked him specifically as one that you could execute because of a personal vendetta against him for being rejected, but to introduce that element into a conversation while you're talking about which of these people we should feel cool about assassinating is just a little bit off-putting, right?
Right.
It's like, I'm not saying it's specifically because Tattletale has a vendetta against this guy who rejected her, but thanks for bringing that into people's heads.
Yeah.
Lisa, thanks for that.
And, here is where I want to mention something that I don't even know if I fully made the connection until this moment, but I kind of half made it before now, which is that Victoria gives a lot of orders, and she even thinks of them as orders in the text because it'll say, words I ordered, and they're not the clearest orders because she gives permission to shoot these two with absolutely no specificity as to whether they're to be killed, right? Mm-hmm. Foil, being a hero and being who she is, you have to assume intentionally tries to shoot Myosha in the leg, takes her down rather than killing her.
Yeah.
But you have to also assume the Harbingers would have interpreted that order as kill.
Right.
I mean, that's what I would... That's where my head goes. So
yeah, you could argue that order she gave at the end of last chapter that was like, you can only do this much damage, only a month's worth, right? Like in her head is all encompassing to every order she gives. Yeah. Right.
And just to clarify, I'm not saying like Victoria's a crappy leader. I actually think she's an amazing leader. But it's worth pointing out, like, this is the kind of thing that if you are a leader, you actually feel remorse about later, where you're like going over things and you're like, oh shit, I I didn't give a clear instruction. That's why this happened.
Right.
But like at the time in the heat of a battle, that's exactly what is like inevitably going to happen is you're trying to say things in like the fewest words possible and leaving it up to other people to interpret and enact your orders. And so I guess the reason I'm bringing this up isn't to say like, oh, Victoria needs to work on her verbal skills. I'm saying like, I wonder if she's going to hold this against herself later, specifically one quote unquote order that she's going to give later on that could be clearer.
Yeah. I don't think you're wrong at all. I think that's, knowing Victoria, that's probably not going to be something she's able to let go of very, very easily. I don't think we specifically pointed this out in the script, but I do really like, I like her leadership in these chapters, right? Like, and I think it ties in very well with her kind of fuck this shit. I'm going to give you orders and you guys, you assholes are going to listen to me, because that's the type of leader she is throughout the rest of these chapters. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, Rain, back off, do it. Like she's in the, like, one of the reasons why they win is because she is kind of tossing out these orders, and they are listening to her, and she is now trusting that they are listening to her. Yeah.
Yeah. And to repeat myself, I think it's crucial that the text is actually saying, Rain, back off, I ordered.
Right.
It's not I said. And I didn't do the Control F to verify that this is a change, but I feel like this is a change. Like she didn't think of herself as like barking out orders previous to this arc and maybe even this specific fight.
Yeah, well, I remember we talked for a lot in the earlier parts of this book about how her leadership of Breakthrough was very tenuous, right? Mm-hmm. Like she never really was comfortable saying, yes, I am the leader of this group. That is who I am. It's just she kind of gravitates towards it. And we find out the reason why she gravitates towards it is because of her mother and the type of training Carol gave her. But it was always like a very kind of reticent type of leadership. And now in this situation, she has grasped that full force. And it helps that Tristan is not around, who is normally one of the guys to jump into that leadership position. But I do think that is a shift. I don't think she was quite giving out orders, or her internal monologue was calling them orders. So yeah, we didn't do the control find, but I think your perception is correct.
Okay, cool. So it turns out Bluestocking is unhappy that Victoria has brought the fight to her literal doorstep. She wants more goodies like concessions from the mayor, and she wants to borrow Breakthrough members if she can't get that as part of their deal for her team sort of supporting Victoria's team through this.
Yeah, and this reminded me of a scene a couple arcs ago in Arc 10, Matt. There was right when Victoria was trying to stand up her new hero organization, and they were like going out, and there was some controlled, successful strike forces against some enemies. One of those groups that their organization took down was a group called the Growers Court. And this was a group of people who took seeds, machinery, tools, infrastructure from the city. But then when it came time to pay taxes, when it came time to give some of their crop back to the city, they basically refused. They said no. And they kind of closed themselves off. And this pissed off our group, and they took these people down, and they were very content with taking these people down. Like Tristan was mad about it, right? There was like this kind of Rain's kind of explaining what happened, and Tristan like jumps in, oh, you mean those guys that took all the stuff and didn't get anything back? And now a few arcs later, we're in the situation where they have to make this a very similar deal to this group. That is what Bluestocking wants. She wants preferential treatment. We get the benefits of being attached to the mega city. We don't want to have to pay the cost. We don't want to pay taxes. We want preferential treatment. And they're in a situation now where one of the groups they were crushing and happily stopping because they were doing these same things is something they have to agree to deal out to another one.
Yeah, and it's one of the situations where you can empathize with Bluestocking asking for something like that, but all it actually does really is like breeds resentment against your group if you have a special position like that. So, it is interesting. Yeah, I definitely didn't make that connection to the Growers Court. I think that's great. Is like they're basically, this is a cool like parallel showing that Breakthrough is having to make these compromises on things that they would normally care about and where they would maybe normally draw a line. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a good point.
Yeah, and of course the second part of that deal, right, the penalty deal, is they two members of Breakthrough have to come work for Blue Stocking and her group, and they have to be seen working for them, right? So if you can't give us preferential treatment, I have to show that I have the ability to command heroes. And Victoria negotiates this down to one person.
Yeah.
In her brilliant negotiating tactics, which include tell Blue Stocking fuck her.
Yeah.
it's just brilliant.
Right.
But I mean, I think someone pointed this out to me on Twitter, and I think they're absolutely correct that probably one of the reasons why she was so set on negotiating it down to one person is because then she can go, I'll do it. Right. She can take it on herself and be like, I'll be the one that goes and fulfills this part of the deal. She doesn't want to make anyone else on her team do it. She's going to be the one to do it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we've observed before that Victoria doesn't have the highest social modifier.
No.
But like during this fight, it's getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and again, because she's under stress, even under normal circumstances, she can be impatient with villains.
Yeah.
But just being like, oh yeah, and also tell her fuck her. That's like just it's the degree to which she is just really over the edge of being tired of villain shit.
Yeah.
Is really evident here.
And then in a few minutes, when she's like flying around fighting, she's like, Blue Stocking, you better cut me some slack on this deal we just cut. And Blue Stocking is like, the reason that I'm being attacked right now is I cut the deal. Like what did you expect?
Right. And Victoria, to her credit, doesn't respond to that.
Right.
So.
Just like, fuck, she's right.
Yeah. Right. So then Victoria uses a porch as a mobile shield to cover the movement of her allies, protecting them from gunfire with a giant piece of architecture. Then there's sudden chaos and confusion as the team is flanked by Blue Stocking's group on the offensive. New Wave is actually able to react quickly and gets everyone down, taking advantage of their immunity to light-based attacks. Before the heroes can counterattack, Tattletale manages to communicate that Blue Stocking's group is being held hostage by Paris and not just double-crossing them.
Yeah, so there's a few things I think that are worth talking about in this moment. I think in retrospect, this moment where Mark says to Victoria, throw up your force field and close your eyes, and Victoria has to like frantically, like while blinded, run away from him before she can throw up her force field because, of course, of the wretch, is actually like a low-key pretty good setup for what happens at the end of this chapter, right? Because like it establishes that both Carol and Mark do not know about the wretch,
right.
Which is something we probably knew, but it's at least reminding us of the fact.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, we must have known simply by omission, right?
Right.
But yeah, no, that's definitely a good subtle way of priming us for that.
Yeah, and then of course the misinformation to begin with, right? Because you're right that there's this sudden eruption attack from Myosha, whatever, and everything is thrown into chaos. We, the readers, immediately think the worst has happened. Blue Stocking has been flipped. She's now on Cradle's side, and I think we're kind of built to expect the worst at this point because like we've had an arc of things just getting worse and worse, and our hero is not getting very many wins. So I think like the text is kind of turning into that, and I think it does it again later in a couple chapters. But we have this moment where suddenly Carol yells no. Mark commands her something. Mark tells her we're going to do this one technique. They go back to their old strategies, and Mark tells her that, and Carol says no. And it makes her hesitate. And then Tattletale says no. And Victoria listens, right? Like if Victoria had just followed her father's orders and thrown her mom or just like struck out and attacked like she was told to, things could have gone really, really bad. But she listens to two people that she doesn't really like listening to very often here.
Yeah.
And I think you get Amy in here and have her yell no, then it's the trifecta.
Yeah, it's true. No, that's true. Yeah, like I think now that Tattletale has been humbled, Victoria isn't really feeling like their rivalry has much substance in this exact moment.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right.
And then the thing with Carol right now is it's interesting. I don't remember in this scene, I don't remember if she's Carol or Brandish or Mom. Because that becomes relevant pretty soon, because she changes it. But anyway, I don't remember right now.
I don't know off the top of my head either. But yeah, I mean, we'll definitely get there when we talk about
the thing that happens. But anyway, yeah. So they realize, so Victoria, badass Victoria, hero moment, like flies up and attacks and finds Thud and Paris taking cover behind the cooperating villains. She kicks Thud's finger into his own eye socket, which basically puts out one of his eyes, and then she punches Paris in the chest at full strength, crushing his rib cage. And as he's like suffering and trying and like perhaps instinctually draws out one of his long railroad spike weapons, she says, "Give me one more excuse and I end you."
Before we go on, while you were talking, I looked it up. It's mom. It's mom in this chapter still. She says, "Mom said no. Mom said this. Mom said that." So there you go. You were correct in that, and I think that makes the change in the next chapter all the more significant.
Yeah.
So anyway, Victoria just beat the shit out of some people.
Yeah, just crushed your rib cage. You know that's a rather important part of your anatomy.
Yeah. Let's make one thing clear here, Matt. Fuck Paris.
Yes.
Fuck him. Fuck this Thud guy. We don't know him that much, but yeah, we'll toss him in. Fuck that guy. They suck and they deserve it, right?
Thud, we're pretty sure was part of the attack on the navigators, right?
Yeah.
So we'll put him in that bin. Fine.
Right. But however, this is full Glory Girl, right? Yeah. I mean, this is brutal, possibly necessary violence. And while I'm glad to see these guys taken out, I'm not sure if we're supposed to be cheering on sternum shattering.
Well, it's interesting because I am, but I'm definitely open to the idea of like kind of stepping back from the story and monitoring how our girl Victoria is doing. Mm-hmm. But like in this moment, you're just like, fuck yeah, like
right. There's some like obviously like. I think it really goes back to that one moment where Victoria said, right, where like, yeah, you can feel good about the bad people suffering, but like, don't feel too good about it, right? Like, like measure how bad you feel about feeling good about it, right? And I think that's where I am with this, where I'm like, yeah, but also, yay.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take her word for it that she non-fatally broke several of his ribs and maybe his sternum. So he's going to be out of commission for like a really long time. Give him some time to, as the Harbinger would have said, let him rethink his life choices.
Right.
So
right, but I mean, like, I think the text like shows, like, I slammed my foot into his hand with all the strength I could bring to bear. Right. Yeah. This is full strength, Victoria. This is no holding back. This is every bit of strength she has in this moment. And it's like, whoa, we haven't seen that before. And yeah, like sternum and ribs shattered. They didn't break, Matt. We just didn't say, oh, I broke his ribs and his sternum. They shattered.
Yeah.
Sternum, you just turned his sternum into projectiles and there's a lot of squishy stuff under it. Yeah. I mean, I don't think Paris is like dead, right? I like, obviously we see Damsel use him as a hostage. So he's not lying there dead.
Right.
But dang. Yeah. Dang.
Yeah.
And I love the point after where he was laid fat, like after she shatters his sternum and ribs, her next thing she says is, he was laid flat, obviously enough. And I don't know, that's just like, it's cold in like I'm not, vindictive isn't the right
detached,
word.
Maybe.
It's just like, yeah, he's obviously enough, right?
Right. With it's almost like sarcastic.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So Thud then poses a problem as he seems to be able to create powerful concussive shockwaves by punching things.
Guess that finger didn't go into that Thud brain, right?
Yeah. That's scary.
Mm-hmm.
Damsel and Swan. So sorry. I'm reading text now, quoting. Damsel and Swansong didn't move in coordination, but more out of a kind of competition, each trying to outdo the others, to move further, faster, and more frenetically. They zigzagged across each other's paths to cut one another off, and somehow they were more scary in this than they'd been as two wolves in a pack on their hunt, as I'd seen briefly just a little while ago. So first of all, I just love this image of them like frenetically,
Yeah.
like rapidly approaching. And then the explicit contrast with them hunting in tandem and being on the same wavelength, and how this is like pointing out that it's more scary. Like, yeah, it does sound more scary. This is a
Yeah.
great image.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also like we've been seeing this relationship between these two people go from friendly kind of ribbing to almost a complete deterioration by the end of it, right? Like, I mean, like they've been barbing against each other, and it's turned from friendly to vicious, and now like they've turned from cooperation to competition, and we've seen like it's slowly over the course of this arc, this relationship has kind of deteriorated from whatever it was. And I think we're going to hit that beat over and over again throughout these two chapters. Like throughout this entire fight, we keep going back to Ashley and Damsel and keep emphasizing the competition between them, the ribbing between them, Ashley's observed failures from Damsel's perspective. I think we're really building up to this relationship between these two sisters coming to a head at some point soon. Obviously not in these chapters, but at some point soon, something is going to change dramatically in this relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like the moment when Damsel slashed her on the shoulder with her blade was crossing a line for Ashley, because, I mean, I think that's, first of all, that's associated with her trauma, and anyone like literally physically abusing her, that crosses the line from just like mean spirited bullying into like truly abusive behavior. And I don't think the relationship is gonna come back from that, honestly.
Yeah, and I wonder if this is like, I wonder if at the start of this relationship, Ashley hoped that maybe she could save Damsel and like bring her to where she had gotten. Mm-hmm. And maybe by the end of this chapter, it's more, I don't see hope for her. She's made her choice, kind of thing, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I never want to write anybody off in this story, but like I feel like their relationship right now is at a very, very low point. I wouldn't be surprised to see it just deteriorate completely.
I also wonder what this means, you know, for Ashley and her progress, because one of the beats we're going to hit over and over again throughout these chapters is Ashley is quote unquote failing, right? We see like she's unable to do things. I think I'll wait to talk about this because I think we've highlighted all the moments throughout these chapters where Ashley's weaknesses, are perceived or otherwise, come to bear in some way.
Yeah. All right, so as the team converges on Thud, Damsel takes Paris hostage, and Thud appears to give up just before Harbinger blows up his remaining eye.
Yeah, and I think you've captured the most important part there, that he was going to give up. The text specifically says Thud pauses, and then it says, then he relaxed. And all indication of relaxing is, okay, you've got me. I'm not going to do anything to you because you have my friend hostage. And then, bam! Explosion in the other eye. And Victoria doesn't take this well, right?
Yeah.
Her initial reaction is, I take in one eye. Was that somehow licensed to the Harbinger to take the other? What had Citrine sent me? Worse, what did it say that she was okay employing little monsters like this? Did she use them in this kind of capacity? And like I get why she's very uncomfortable with this, right? Because she didn't give this order. She didn't tell them to take out Thud, right? Like that was never an explicit order given, and they did it unnecessarily. Like, as we said, we saw him relax. Now, I'm sure the number boys would happily make the argument, well, we didn't know for sure. He could have just been about to plan something else.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that settles uncomfortably with her, and maybe it's, you know, the fact that she just did it first, right? She calls them little monsters, and they did something that she had just done herself, and maybe this is her kind of like way of maybe kind of dealing with the fact that, hey, I just did that too. And she's not, at this point, she's not like able to turn on herself and be like and chastise herself, but so she's kind of maybe projecting her anger and disappointment on them.
Right. And you know, our discussion question is about blame, right? And we're going to talk about that, you know, later on. But the reason I bring it up now is like, she does seem to be in this moment trying to blame the Harbingers, trying to blame Citrine, trying to find some way that this is not on her,
Right.
which is actually kind of unlike her. But she is facing kind of having just been a part of giving someone a horrible maiming, which is kind of a thing for her.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like, what did it say that she was okay employing little monsters like this? Did she use them in this kind of capacity? And it's like, I know Citrine sent them to you, Victoria, but you are currently using them in this kind of capacity. Like that is something you are doing. And again, I don't want to have a conversation about whether this is quote unquote necessary or not. These are bad guys. They need to be taken out. That's not what we're arguing. What we are arguing is something bordering hypocrisy here. I don't think it's quite the same because I do think these two situations are very different. In one situation, Thud was holding someone hostage and she damaged him to free that person. In this one, Thud is surrendering to someone else's hostage maneuver and then is damaged. So they are different, right? But it is telling and interesting to at least, think about.
I think it just speaks to the level of discomfort that she has with this whole situation, that she's not quite sure of it and of her role in it.
I think that's right. I think you're absolutely right that the discomfort, uncertainty about all this, and she's not able to really process through the complicated nature of that uncertainty right now because she just doesn't have the luxury. But this is something I think our girl is going to be looking back on this day for a while.
Yeah.
No matter how it turns out, especially since it's about to get a whole lot worse for her.
Right.
But before we move on, we do have this one moment that I just wanted to bring to attention on our further Ashley Swansong Damsel conversation. There is this moment that Damsel says, "Losing your edge, sister," and Victoria wonderfully goes, "Stop, no." It's just like, it's really good. But again, this is kind of drawing out and demonstrating this increased tension between these two people. They are barbing each other, even though it is very clear that this is not the time. And we know Swansong's kind of done with this shit. And I think the thing I love about this is we don't hear Swansong respond. Like, she doesn't barb back. She doesn't give like a plucky response. She's silent here. She says nothing.
I think the text says that Swansong gives Victoria a long look.
Yeah.
And which I'm kind of tracking in the background the evolving Victoria Swansong relationship, where they start off this chapter literally leaning on each other, and Swansong seems to be increasingly accepting of actually just following orders from Victoria, and being comfortable with her being the leader, and maybe coming to respect her in that capacity in a way where it's just not going to be an issue for her anymore. I'm not sure that that's what's happening because she hasn't, we haven't had them have a conversation about it or anything like that. But there's definitely been a lot more of Ashley just, seeing Victoria's family and what that's like, seeing Victoria be a good leader through a lot of bad situations. Yeah. And then just them obviously caring a lot about the same people. It's just brought them really close together.
I think you're right.
And I love it.
I love it too. And I do think there's a part of Swansong that probably really appreciated Victoria's "fuck all of you" speech, right? Yeah. I think that's the type of leadership where Swansong's like, yeah.
That's a really good point that I hadn't put together, that like right now the leadership style Victoria is using is
very Swansong-esque.
The ranting the ranting villain style, which would appeal to her.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So while this fight with Paris and Thud resolves, Cretan has turned much of the town into a maze, rising up skyscraper high. Victoria and a few allies enter the maze as well, and Cradle's mech smashes through a building and into the vicinity. Meanwhile, the maze has corralled the Breakthrough Siders into a small area, and the heroes are fighting to keep from being surrounded too thoroughly. Cradle is trying to fight Rain in close quarters, teleporting around him and using his light blades to limit movement of allies. All the allies are trying to tag him in turn, but he continues his dialogue with Rain, accusing him of thinking he's better.
Can we just talk about just the geography of this scene? Because I love it.
Yeah.
So we're at a clearing. It doesn't say in the center of the maze, but we're at a clearing in Cretan's maze. There are hallways coming out at the cardinal directions. Rain is in close quarters combat with Cradle, while each of their teammates are standing at one of the cardinal directions, trying to prevent other people from prevent the bad guys from getting into the clearing, while also all trying to take snipe shots at Cradle. It's this wonderful, like, this is the climax, right? This is so clearly created and formed to be the climactic moment. This clearing in the middle of a giant maze. It's such a wonderfully, like, it's a wonderful aesthetic. I love it so much. I can see this battle unfold.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole maze setting is it makes things, claustrophobic, which works really well.
Yeah, and then there's this one line, like, Victoria says Cradle just kind of, as you said, he just kind of busts through a building. He just kind of dives right in. And Victoria says, I expected the Undersiders and Breakthrough to be scattered. It wasn't the case. And so, like, she comments that Cradle is doing what she normally does, which is when she's against a large group of enemies, she kind of throws herself right in the middle of them and then hopes that her barging right in the middle is going to confuse them and scatter them and break their cohesion. But the one thing she notices is this group does not scatter. It does not break. The cohesion continues. We have people all surrounding Cradle, working together. Like, it's kind of like all the guys surrounding and fighting off the big powerful person. It is community. It is teamwork. It is everyone coming together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic battle. And I think we're going to point this out a few times where just everyone is doing something clever constantly. And that's actually what makes this a hard fight to summarize, is that, like, every paragraph is like 3 different cool things that like different people are doing to try to solve the problem in a creative way, using their power in some interesting way. Yeah.
So I basically just copy pasted every line of dialogue Cradle has in this entire chapter because I love them all. I don't think we have to go through every one of these, but I wanted to talk about what you said at the end there, that Cradle is arguing that you think you're better and you're not. That you've decided you're better. I see you. I see your weak points. I see your flaws, your stains. And we learn a little bit later in next chapter that the reason he sees that is because that's kind of his emotion power, right? But then we have Cradle say at the end here, the difference between us is that I overcame what I am. Then association with you knocked me all the way down and made it impossible to be better again. You didn't overcome what you were until we made you, until we influenced you. And that's fascinating. And I think we're going to be talking about Cradle and why Cradle loses a lot in the next chapter. But this general idea of I did this of my own accord and then you screwed it up. You only did it because someone else forced you to. And that might be true, but look at what side you're on right now. Like, right? Like, that gets into our blame discussion. I don't want to bring that up prematurely, but this is the beginning of Cradle defining what I think is his blame others.
Yeah.
His blame others methodology. He, if you ask Cradle, if Cradle's to blame, nope, none of it.
Right.
It made it impossible to be better again. What you did to me made it impossible to get back to where I was. And I don't know if I agree that what we saw in his interlude made that to be a true statement, right? I don't think the decision he seemed to have made or the things that happened to each other was really like, it is literally impossible for me to get back to the way I was before.
Yeah, and he says similar things in the next chapter too, where he's like, "I'm physically incapable of it."
Yeah,
and like, I mean, that's interesting. Like, does he believe that to be true? Like, it seems like he does believe that to be true. Like, why else would he say it, right? Like, there's no reason that he doesn't need to persuade Rain or Victoria of anything. Mm-hmm. So the fact that he's saying it means that he believes it, which is interesting, and it really is just a continuation of his kind of ethos of like,
it's you took me from me.
Yeah,
that's the same. That's
yeah, and I just want to get back to to the way things were, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but so, he can't.
Yeah, and yeah, like, and he accuses, like you said, he accuses Rain of, yeah, we already talked about that.
Well, but I mean, but the interesting thing about that is like his argument is you didn't get better, you didn't overcome. Like Rain and Cradle are actually very similar in some regards, right?
Yeah.
They were both dealt a raw hand. Cradle's is a personality disorder. Rain's was indoctrination into a cult. And both of them at different points in their lives managed to overcome it. But the argument that Rain's doesn't count because it happened after this life-changing event is I think Cradle kind of showing his weakness here, because he sees this event, the only result of this event could be getting worse. So it is impossible for this thing to be the instigating factor to get something better. And then of course he's arguing that it was the personality bleed. He's basically making the same argument that I was afraid was going to happen in the story, which is that the story was saying that because he was getting other people's personalities, his emotions and his guilt and his feelings and his change were magically motivated and not self-improvement motivated. But we know that the bleed doesn't work that way, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think this is great because it's another example of what we say, fairly often, that no one is the villain of their own story. So
right.
For Cradle to be able to do all these terrible things that he does, he has to, in his own mind, think like, this isn't my fault. This is all I can do. This is the best I can do.
Yeah.
Which
the next chapter, that line, we're going to get to it, but this is me coping or something to that. That's, oh my God.
Right.
That's
right. Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah. I haven't killed anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, buddy. Just keep telling yourself that you're doing everything right.
Yep. So Cradle directs his mech onto the attack, and Victoria has to square off against it, strength against strength. Carol then moves in too close to help, perhaps to lend the power of her lightsabers, unaware of the wretch.
Yeah, and I have to be honest here. The first time I read this, I didn't clue in on what just happened. My initial reaction was, oh God, Cradle Brandish got too close, and a Cradle whip went by and sliced up Carol. That was my initial reaction, right? I'm not going to lie and say I got this instantly, but of course, on reread, the moment that you realize this is so amazing, right?
Yeah.
Like it's so, it's so powerful and impactful, and it's the perfect way to end a chapter. And
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying I wasn't clear on it, and then I did that thing where, because it was the end of the chapter, I just went to the Reddit immediately, and then people there were already they'd already kind of explained it clear. It was pretty clear once someone says that was the wretch hitting Carol. You're like, oh, okay, yeah. Definitely.
And on retrospect, it's very obvious, right?
Yeah.
It's just I think the idea of that happening is so foreign to me because it's so awful. My brain didn't go there first.
Well, not only did your brain not go there, but the text itself pulls away from it. It's like I felt the sick impact, but I couldn't spare any attention for it, basically. Yeah. And it's like the sick impact? What? Yeah. And it's intentionally because Victoria is flinching away from thinking about what just happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I love about this, though, is it's such a wonderful play off of something we've been building up throughout the story, or at least this arc of the story, how amazing these new wave characters have been synergizing and strategizing off of each other, right? They're this kind of fine-tuned machine of people that are able to just go, like, say this maneuver, go, works perfectly, wonderful. Look at this synergy, it's wonderful. But if there's one big problem in the relationship between Victoria and her mother, it's communication. They're bad at it. They're super bad at it. And here's one of the biggest holes in their communication. We've talked about how dangerous it was for Victoria to not share the wretch with her team, right? Like that's in fact one of the reasons why she finally pushed herself to do it. At least the reason she gave herself is I need to reveal this to them because it's becoming unsafe for these people not to know about this thing, to be around me. But she forgot to tell somebody else. And
yeah. And she didn't even think about it, right?
Yeah.
and neither did I, frankly. So that's
Yeah.
like that's another kind of instance of great sleight of hand in the text, is that you forget to pay attention to things because the character isn't paying attention to them.
Yeah.
And it is like a magic trick where the text is directing your attention, where it wants you to be paying attention and thus not paying attention to places where it's actually doing the trick.
Right. And of course, like on retrospect, going back and reading that part where she has to quickly move away from Mark, blind, without like, is clearly maybe not consciously, but subconsciously cueing into the idea that this is a potential.
Yeah.
Because I certainly didn't pick it up the first time I read it. It was only on a read through that I really cued in on the Mark moment with the wretch, that maybe we were starting to deal with the possibility of this.
Yeah. So one of my first thoughts was basically the wretch probably, like, the wretch is probably has the attitude of like, I'm helping.
Right.
Because my awesome host obviously hates the sphere, the basketball woman.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take care of her. So I mean, I don't know, like, that's very much like a stab in the dark as to why this happened, but like, it could just be random. But I feel a little bit more satisfaction thinking that Waste thought this was a good idea and did it on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, we know Waste like doesn't have full control of the wretch either, right?
Yeah,
I think that's the description of driving a car with a wrench. So it is barely wrangling it as well. But yeah, I mean, I definitely can see that's a very Shard-like attitude, right? It's like, oh, here's this person that my host, my glorious host, hates.
Right.
They just came over. Let's do something about it.
Right.
Yeah, I could see that.
All right, so we begin the next chapter, 12.9, and we're basically picking up with an immediate continuation of the struggle with the Megacarpus 2. Yet, for the first many paragraphs of this chapter, we get no real mention of the fact that Victoria has just wretched her mom.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing, is like reading it, because I read both of these chapters on the same day. So reading it, like, I still wasn't sure what was happening. And I was like, but Carol, what's going on? And yeah, you're absolutely right that the text goes like into overdrive to try to avoid dealing with that. Like we dive into these paragraphs, and these paragraphs are like super, super, super detailed descriptions of the standoff. Like, she's describing the mech in a level of detail in which the mech has never been described. She's describing how their face-off is working. A hand was a series of moving parts, and I had to account for all of them. With the way the machine was positioned, 3 hands planted on the ground and 1 for me to deal with, it was trying to lift me up. Like, it's just like this super, like, it dives into the details. Like, she's like desperately diving into the details of her fight to avoid thinking about anything else.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it is that like it is this incredibly complex fight, but I also do agree that she's blotting out what she doesn't want to have to think about, which is a very Victoria thing to do.
Yeah.
So when she finally does think about Brandish, it's Brandish now, not Mom. She refuses to look at what's happened. She can overhear what I imagine to be Mark's increasingly frantic screaming at Carol to shift into her bubble form.
Yeah, and what I love about this, I think the pickup on Brandish was really great, because you're absolutely right. After I saw you write this in the script, I went back and double checked on this chapter, and it is Brandish. It is Brandish all throughout. But we kind of see her efforts to ignore what just happened fail. Like we see it fall apart. Like we see her strategy fail, because she's going through, like we talked about, the super detailed, like, clinical description of the bot, of her wretch, of the struggle between them. And then she starts to think about Cradle's light slashes. And then she's like, and they can cut through just about anything. And then her thoughts betray her, because she says each could apparently cut through a force field through, and then we get an M dash, through breaker bubbles, like Brandish's. And it, like, you see her train of thought, like, that she's been trying so hard to steer away from what just happened. You see it, like, inadvertently cut back to it. And we've seen her do this with Amy so many times, right? Like, something will lead her down a thought hole that will bring her back to Amy unexpectedly. And that's exactly what happens here.
Yeah. I mean, she's using that coping mechanism. Which I mean,
Yeah.
it's appropriate that comes up here, right? Because this is basically her very routine coping mechanism when something triggers her memories, her associations with this terrible time in her life. Is she's really good at like flinching away from it, blacking it out in her
Yeah.
mind, and here it's I mean, she's in the middle of combat, right? Like she, I understand not wanting to look at what has just happened because like that would be very distracting.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're seeing it kick in a time and place where it's maybe not helping.
Yeah. What I love about it, like, so her thoughts fail her and she thinks about Brandish when she's trying not to. And then her ears fail her and she hears words and she's like, okay, it's fine. The words aren't for me. I can safely ignore them. I'll just refuse to listen to them. I'll focus on my pulse. That's it. I'll focus on my pulse. It's just my heart beating. That's fine. And then the next line, I could try. And then, of course, the next thing we hear is her father screaming about Carol.
And yeah. And I think like one great thing to point out there is that it's Carol every time from Mark. He's yelling. He's calling her Carol, even to other people.
Yeah.
He completely stops calling her Brandish at this point.
Yeah, and that's wonderful.
Yeah,
we kind of see the two of them deal with this thing in very opposite ways, where she goes immediately to distance herself from the relationship, where he dives right into it. And that's of course reflective of their varying guilts and concerns
and just,
in these moments.
Right, and just the level of what their relationship is.
Yeah.
So as Victoria struggles for inches against the mech, we see that she has quite a deep awareness of the shape and contours of the Wretch force field, because it does exactly mirror the shape that she's very familiar with. And I thought this was a neat reminder of that, because I guess it just never occurred to me that she would know exactly what shape the Wretch was.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah,
I mean, and it's like look, I think there is. And I tried to talk about this on Twitter, and I think I just like ran out of characters because I was going on for too long. But there is, I think one of the jobs of this story is to get us in the mind of Victoria and get us into her head, into her point of view, and see how she sees the world, and maybe understand why the things that she's suffering from are such big issues. And that's kind of why I immediately flinch at people who complain about Victoria's inner monologue focusing on the bad things that happen to her too much, because I'm like, look at this section where she thinks about this area on her body that the hospital workers had to work extra hard to keep clean. I could protest and claim my force field kept the dust off, but that did nothing for accumulated sweat and the bacteria that multiplied in the sweat. The washings and the lean forward so we can get there instructions had left me with an enduring awareness of a feature that would stay with me for the rest of my life. Right? So I think the book recognizes its need to remind us, the readers, of how ever present this thing that happened to Victoria is in her mind always. And sometimes we forget, right? We get into the heat of the battle and we focus on Victoria as she is now. She's this attractive young woman who has superpowers and is badass, and we forget the Wretch as the afterimage, as what she was. So I will never complain about her monologue going back to this stuff, because we need to be reminded too. And one of the reasons why I think Carol can never fully understand it is because it's not this ever present thing. She looks at Victoria and sees the daughter that she remembers. Victoria looks at herself and she sees this part that had a fold of skin that people needed to go in and clean. And
yeah,
I love it. I adore it. It's tragic and horrible. I don't mean I love it like this is good stuff. I mean, like, it's fantastic writing.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad you pulled out those paragraphs. I almost pulled those out myself, because they're just so emotionally resonant, and the vivid description of it makes it so much more tactile and immediate.
I mean, it is easy to construct a model of outside understanding of what it was like for Victoria to live for 2 years like this, right? But that is very different from an interior, detail-based explanation of how simply horrific this existence was for her.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I mean, I think it's amazing that we're on, the 80 millionth word of the story, and and this description still managed to like make me uncomfortable and think like, oh yeah, shit, that must have sucked. Like you'd think I'd be over having those thoughts by now.
Yeah.
But no, it's still just as like, oh God. So yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I know we've talked about this a lot, and I promise I'll be quick, but an enduring awareness of the feature that would stay with me for the rest of my life, right? Like, we have to remember that this was something that she just assumed was never going to change. It was why would it change? Why would there be any future from this? This is it. This is all I have forever.
Yeah.
And just like dealing with that thought day in and day out for 2 years.
Yeah, right. So moving on, despite the car-crushing strength of the wretch, the giant mech is actually stronger, and it gradually wins the contest. Cradle makes this worse for Victoria by placing his cutting lines in the path that she's going to be forced. So yeah, I mean, like we said earlier, this whole chapter is extremely intense, and it's an extremely complicated fight. We've got like 15 different capes doing clever and creative cape things. We've got Foil shooting at Cradle, Harbingers crawling around on the mech, surgically dismantling it. We've got a giant mutated bitter pill showing up, tearing soldiers apart and then being dismembered. That's just like barely half of the stuff that's happening in this like very small, like physically small scale, but just like extremely intense brawl.
Yeah, and it makes it effectively climactic, I think, too, because this is the fight we've been building up to forever. And I think Wildbow manages to sell this as the climax, because every bit of cooperation and community that Victoria has been working on comes to bear here. Her team up with the Undersiders, her agreement with Citrine, her work with her parents, her negotiation with Bluestocking, every bit of choices and moves she's made is coming to bear here as we see each and every one of these people strike out against Cradle and fight him. It's all coming to bear, and it's climax. It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. I love it. So my, we're gonna, I guess, just reiterate the fact that at this point, Moose is asking who needs help. And Mark answers, Carol, the woman.
Yeah.
And it's like he can't stop calling her Carol. He can't even say like, I mean Brandish. Like,
yeah.
Like it's I just love that line. That's maybe my favorite line in the whole chapter is this truncated Mark trying to basically just get someone to help get in there and get her out of there.
Yeah. And I mean, that's something we haven't talked about, is that like he's screaming at her over and over again to change, to go into her ball form, to change, do it. And people don't understand like why she won't. It's like she's clearly moving around, she's conscious, but she's not doing it, right? And that gets to this wonderful moment where Victoria says, I knew. Even after all this time, Brandish hated being in that form. Still Brandish. Even when she's talking about very personal stuff, still Brandish, not Mom. It left her blind and deaf, sensing and tracking the world around her with another kind of awareness. In the ball, she was confined to the dark, and she hated the dark. And I'm remembering one of those very, very long Megafire essays months and months ago where he talked about how ruled by her fear, Carol still is. And this is exactly that. In this moment, she's so psychologically distraught at the injury she's just sustained that the idea of going into the safe form is so scary to her that she won't do it.
Yeah, especially in this moment where she's already kind of terrified, right?
Mm-hmm.
It kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And we still don't know, like, is she injured in a way where she might not have her wits about her, and that's part of why it is, or is it literally that she's, because we don't hear anything from her, which is like the creepiest part. Like we don't hear a sound from her.
No.
I don't know. It's horrible.
Yeah, we never learn how she's injured in this chapter. Like we don't get any details on that at all from anyone.
Right. Yep. And Victoria at this point thinks it hurt. The regret, the full and total knowledge that I'd that I hadn't told her about my force field and she'd gotten hurt because of it. I didn't want to call it the wretch in this context because that felt like it was deflecting blame to the reckless and wild consciousness at the other end of my power. And I mean, that's, I think especially salient to bring up because she had this moment where it kind of seemed like she was trying to deflect blame for what she did to Thud. But here she's actually going out of her way to be like, yeah, that was on me because the reason she got hurt wasn't that the wretch is out of control. The reason is that I didn't warn her.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's so important because it's the idea of taking responsibility, right? Like she did not do the hit, right?
Yeah.
The wretch did the hit, but she's responsible for it because she in her mind she didn't give information she should have given, and she's not like, I love that detail. Like I didn't want to call it the wretch this time. I called it my force field this time because it's mine. It's not this other entity that I've created to kind of push off my issues. My how I deal with this thing that reminds me of some of the most terrible parts of my life. It's mine. It's my force field. This is mine. It's my problem. It's my fault. And she takes it. And you know who else takes it? You know who else takes blame for the things they've done? Our boy Rain takes blame for the things he's done. And you know who doesn't take blame for the things they've done? Cradle. Yeah. Cradle. And that, I mean, we're going to circle around this again and again. At the end of the day, that's the difference. And it's not about, and I think like we talked about blame and responsibility in our discussion question, and we have a lot of great answers to go through. Those are great. I think who to blame as a society, or whether or not you should blame someone and someone taking self responsibility for something are two different things.
Yeah.
And I think what we're seeing is the importance of the latter, right? It doesn't matter if you are to blame. If you take responsibility for something, that is how you grow past it. That is how you improve past it.
I agree 100%. I think that taking responsibility is pretty much always the right move.
Yeah.
So there's one thing that I just noticed that I think is very interesting.
What's that?
Victoria has basically always held it against her mom that she absolutely minimized how much time she spent around her, and even when she was around her in the hospital, kind of like tried to distance herself from it and like would just talk to the nurses.
Mm-hmm.
And here we have Victoria, who has just done something horrible to her mom, and now Victoria can't stand to look at it.
Oh man, that's a oof. That's a good. I like it.
I mean, beyond just the parallelism, I wonder if Victoria is going to be like, "Oh, this is what my mom was going through." The guilt, because Carol clearly has guilt. Like we know from her interlude that she felt like it was like she had ruined. Like she had just been a terrible mother, and it was her fault that both of her daughters were in the bird cage and turned into a blob respectively. And like it's not like that's why she didn't want to go to the hospital. It's because she felt horribly guilty about it, and so I do wonder if Victoria's going to make that connection or not. Yeah.
And I don't want to say they're equally like we're not saying that Victoria is just as bad as Carol here, right? Like I just want to throw that out there before people jump all over you. That's not what we're saying.
Not even close, because there's a big difference between not looking at a horrible thing that you just did in this stressful moment and not going to see your daughter in the hospital.
Right.
So yeah, but yeah, there's definitely like I think Victoria and Carol are more similar than Victoria would like to admit, which is generally the case with children and their parents. And this is one example of that.
I like that a lot. I'm glad you made that connection.
Cool. So Victoria judos the mech to set it up for a nice hit from Moose. She sees Swan Song and she tightly shakes her head, indicating that she shouldn't attack because her power is too dangerous in this circumstance.
Yeah, which again is another moment where we have Swan Song feel powerless, right? That she looks at the situation and she acknowledges, I can't help, which is good because she's like in control of herself in a way that she hasn't before. And I think we specifically counter that with Damsel's saying, Damsel thinks she's in control, but Damsel is in control of her power. Swan Song is in control of herself.
Yeah. And while we're making connections to things, Swansong isn't really reacting overtly, but Swansong is someone who felt a lot. Who knows what exactly, but it was definitely terribly affected by the fact that she killed her own mother with her power. So
Yeah.
there's definitely a connection between those characters there.
Yeah, and I like that, in relation to what we were just talking about, where we've seen a bond between these characters form over the course of this arc and in the last couple arcs.
Yeah.
That is another place where, one of the reasons why Swansong became so invested and cared so much about Kenzie is because she saw a lot of herself in Kenzie, right?
Yeah.
And so this could be another, path to mutual understanding that she sees that Victoria is going to be going through a lot of shit because of what just happened to her mother, and Ashley knows a lot about that. So yeah, I like that.
Cool. So the team tag teams the mech until they gradually defeat it, with Rain providing a key hit to destroy one limb and the Harbinger redirecting one of its cutting whips into itself. Victoria sees the signature glow of Brandish's sphere form, and we know that she's at least, stable.
Yeah, but and we kind of talked about this already, but yeah, so we see Brandish leave the battlefield. We know she's alive, but that's all the text. That's the most Victoria is able to tell us, because she's not really interested in examining it any closer than that. We've talked a lot about the reasons why already. So
yeah,
it's great. It's great.
Right. It is, I think, good from just a tension perspective to actually move it off of our plate mentally, to say, okay, she's in the ball form. We don't have to worry about her right now. We know she's badly injured, but as long as she's in the ball form, she's not going to just die. So you don't have to worry about that right now.
Yeah, you got enough to worry about, reader.
Yeah.
just take that bomb and put it away for a little bit.
Right. So then Victoria flies up to join Sveta, and we see that what happened to Brandish has also resonated with Sveta. And because Sveta, basically Victoria's thinking, I didn't get the feeling of judgment or condemnation, but if there were words to say, I was pretty sure she couldn't bring herself to say them. To absolve me of blame for what I'd done to Brandish required that she do the same for herself, for the accidental deaths she'd caused. I knew from what she'd said in the past that she always wondered about and regretted the preventative actions she hadn't taken.
Yeah, and so the thing about this is, I think this is everything that Victoria just said here is true, right? Sveta is probably aware of this and maybe on some level is thinking about this. But this is a very presumptive line of thoughts on behalf of Victoria. Sveta just doesn't meet her eyes right away. She sees her and doesn't look her right in the eyes. And then Victoria's like, oh, this here must be what Sveta's thinking. And I think it's more a reflection of Victoria's own feelings about her culpability and what just happened than it is necessarily an accurate depiction of what is actually going through Sveta's mind at this second, right? Because it's very possible that Sveta's just saying oh, fuck, she feels awful. I don't know what to say right now. What should I say right now? Should I say something? I don't think it's necessarily true that in this moment Sveta is weighing the relationship as can I free her from her culpability without, not dealing with my shit? I don't know. I just think this is it's a lot that she's putting on Sveta with one lack of look.
Yeah.
That she gets.
And it's just really specific because if you see something terrible happen to someone's mom, then the first thought is oh my God, I'm so sorry something terrible happened to your mom. It's not and you were not responsible in this narrow sense.
Right.
So yeah, I think, I don't know. I mean, this may be one of those instances where the text is just kind of communicating the truth.
Sure.
But I always like readings where the protagonist is projecting their own view of things onto other people. So I do enjoy that.
Yeah. And I mean, because the fact remains that this is a true thing, that Sveta blames herself for things that she's done that aren't necessarily her fault, quote unquote. And that is true. And so this idea that it would be maybe difficult for Sveta to just be able to say, that totally wasn't your fault.
Yeah.
it would be a complicated one. But I don't necessarily think that these are the things that are flying through Sveta's mind at this moment, because Sveta's also in a really rough place herself. And Victoria is also clearly in, I'm gonna do everything I can to beat the shit out of myself right now because I feel real bad. Like when she she literally flies up there with Sveta because she's just like, I got to get away from this. I just got to go high right now. I can't be on the battlefield right now. And then the first thing she notices when she talks to Sveta outside of like her order commanding nature, she's really shaky. Like her voice is surprisingly shaky. So she's like basically on the verge of a breakdown. Like in process. So
right.
I don't necessarily think that she's of the correct mind to like 100% accurately detect Sveta's thought process right now.
Yeah, right. And yeah, neither of them are operating on the wavelength of being able to infer complicated motives. I feel you there. So yeah, adding to the tallying of Victoria's desperate, reckless acts in these chapters, she smashes into a maze wall, sending a cascade of large rocks down that may kill or maim some of the soldiers below her, and she doesn't even really have the ability to check at this moment.
This is, I think, the first moment in the story where Victoria admits to herself that the blow she just delivered might have been a fatal one, right? That this is the first moment where she says, I maybe just killed people.
Yeah.
And she says, but then she's very practical about it. That was like, it's probably not going to be the last time I'm going to have to do it. She says the only way forward was forward. I couldn't atone for one mistake by perpetrating another and letting other people die. So it's like, I have to go all in now. I have to.
Yeah. I mean, we've been gradually kind of gaining steam for this entire arc where they have put themselves into a corner where it was obvious that no holds barred, going for the kill fighting was going to be necessary. And now we're at the point where she literally can't afford to hesitate because it could cost her allies their lives. Yep. Yeah.
And especially like some of the soldiers that are chasing down her teammates, one of those teammates is this anonymous cape that is the one that's carrying Brandish right now.
Yeah.
So like this idea that I hurt my mom, these people might kill my mom. I can't let that happen because that'll definitely be my fault.
Yeah.
So I have to do something right now, and it's going to be throwing rocks at them.
Yeah, true.
And the thing that I like is we're not, like you said, we're not 100% sure. Did she just kill someone? We don't know.
Right. I mean, I wonder if we're going to kind of take an accounting of all of this. It does seem like a thing that would happen in the last, either the last chapter of an arc or even like the first chapter of the next one, where we get kind of the circling the wagons bit, and Victoria, reflects on like, okay, well, so and so is in the hospital. X died.
I want. You know what I want? I want a breakthrough group therapy session closeout chapter. That's what I want. It doesn't have to be Yamada, but it would be great if it was.
They just sit around in chairs and say, all right, we're doing this. Yeah.
Yep.
That'd be awesome.
Let's just talk through all the shit that's happened.
Yeah. Right.
Yamada sits down. So, what's new? How you doing?
Oh man, that's great. So into the aftermath here, Cretan charges in, backed up by Lion Wing's spray of telekinetically controlled razors. Victoria smashes through the walls to get to Lion Wing, but when Victoria corners her, she chooses to let her talk and psychologically mess with her to fish for information instead of just crushing her.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because this encounter starts with Victoria saying, I can't fight her. I can't. Her knife, like sweeping knife attack will knock me out. But I can't let her know that. So she kind of says, instead, I'll like psychologically mess with her instead of just engaging her directly. But I can't help but wonder if like she's just on too shaky ground right now to engage with someone. Like we said moments before, she was flying above this stuff, surveying the battlefield and saying, I need to get down there, except I didn't trust myself. So she's finally worked up the courage to go back down there and engage back in the battle again because she sees the need in it. But I don't think she's still is fully in I trust myself mode here. So I think, yes, this is partially engaging with this woman directly would be very dangerous for me, but partially I don't think she's ready to trust herself in hand-to-hand combat just yet. She's got to build up to it. So she kind of starts just attacking her psychologically first.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to see if like part of the fact that she goes after Lion Wing is just like a sound strategic choice because she's going after the person who is posing a big threat right now. But also it kind of gives her some privacy. I mean, she's still with Lion Wing, but at least she's like physically away from everyone else and lets her kind of maybe compose herself a little bit. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's quite the right read either, though, because she's also like messing with Lion Wing and like putting on airs with her and stuff. So that suggests a certain level of being with it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, she's buying time. I see she's justifying to herself why she is not, with everyone else, not in the fray, not immediately fighting, and using her kind of Victoria tries to talk down the villain technique. But this is very much Victoria tries to like talk piss off villain, not talk down villain. This is a different kind of conversations from the ones we've seen her have. And I do think it's just maybe she's a little bit nervous about going, she's at least collecting herself before she punches some people.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay.
And then, of course, Lion Wing takes her messing with her and then messes with her back.
Yeah, right. So she basically takes the bait. I mean, I think Victoria totally wins the social role here because Lion Wing then like philosophizes about the emotion power of the mall cluster and kind of lays it out for us, which interesting with a couple of little twists that we hadn't necessarily figured out.
Yeah.
So like she says, Old Snag wants to give people things that mean something, and he gets a power that lets him fill objects with emotion, builds gear to shoot people with it. Makes sense, don't it? Lion Wing asked. The bitch inflicts herself on everyone around her and doesn't realize she's doing it even after she brings the teenage girl into her mess. And then a bit later, the boy is a bad weather pattern, a cloud of misery and utter patheticness that hangs over everyone he looks at. And it's interesting because Victoria thinks to herself, like, that's not quite right, but I'm not going to correct her, give her information. And then Lion Wing goes on to say, Cradle's power is to read weaknesses. He senses people's vices and senses how far he can push blackmailing them. And apparently what he's been doing throughout this fight is gathering more knowledge about weaknesses.
Yeah, I really love this. I love everything we learned here. Like, remember we were talking not too long ago about we were having trouble visualizing what Rain's power, like how his emotion power like worked. Like, is it a ball? Is it a sphere? Like, and this very easy image of it's just like a cloud that just like hangs over people is like a really great visualization device that I had never keyed in on. All of these are, I mean, like, yeah, like Love Lost is like a thing emanating from herself. Snags being something he builds into his gear because he recognizes the powerful emotion of objects. It's like stuff that has never been said explicitly, and once it is, it's like, oh yeah, that's really super clever.
Yeah. That's funny. I think I've compared Rain to Eeyore before, and doesn't Eeyore have like a cloud that follows him around sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then of course Cradle's power being one that takes instead of gives is like thematically perfect with him. I like all this information we learned.
Yeah.
My issue with this part is I just found the fact that there's this person named Lion Wing that we don't really know very well is just suddenly revealing all this information here in the 11th hour as just a little clunky to me. Like I love the information we've gotten from this, but like I don't really know who Lion Wing is or why Lion Wing has this knowledge or why she'd choose to give us this knowledge in this moment. I love, like I say, I love the information itself, especially Cradle's. I just like the delivery mechanism. I'm just like, oh, okay, we're doing this. We're doing this now.
Yeah, it almost makes me wonder, like, are we forgetting some instance where we've met Lion Wing before? Because, like, if Lion Wing had been established as someone who monologues, then I might, then it might just be like, yeah, okay, that scans because she would be bragging.
And that might be, I mean, that might be exactly what this is doing, is establishing that, right? Like this.
Yeah,
is,
perhaps.
Hey,
yeah.
Here's this villain who monologues.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's just kind of very abrupt. And I was just like, oh, okay. almost as if like we're about to wrap up this arc or this whole part of the story involving the mall cluster, and we needed to have this like overall breakdown of how this works. We needed to establish Cradle's emotion power, which we hadn't done yet.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I see what you mean there. Like I was almost thinking like maybe this is information that might have gone better if it were like worked into Cradle's interlude. But as it is, it like we needed to get it somehow. So
sure, yeah,
so
I totally agree that it's information we need for sure, and it's great. Like I love it thematically, I love it like visually, I love everything. Like it's like a puzzle piece fitting together, right? It's like we finally have this very clear image of the mall cluster, with the exception of that mysterious fifth thing that we still don't know about. And the other thing I guess is that like I don't think we see do we see Cradle's part of the power pay off in this fight?
No, and that like that makes me feel like that this is a setup, that like he's gathered all these weaknesses, I guess is the implication, but he hasn't used them, or maybe he's gonna like I don't know what the implications are exactly, because it makes me actually worried. It's like, okay, well, the chapter ends with him basically being taken into custody, presumably.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's not resolved.
Right. I feel like I want to leave this chapter because I'm so happy that they've won, that I want to be like, yes, they did it. Cradle's defeated. It's over. It's over. But yeah, I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe. Well, maybe we're not quite done yet.
I mean, it leaves me, I don't know if this is going to get the right thing across, but it leaves me like with that feeling of in the Dark Knight when the Joker allows himself to be captured. Like I don't think Cradle's allowing himself to be captured, but it's a similar feeling where you're like, well, they caught him, but it doesn't feel like a complete win,
Sure.
Yeah, but because specifically because of this fact that like, well, he never, like that Chekhov's gun never went off.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I suppose you could argue, we were talking about like, why would he lie to Rain as he's telling things to him? You could argue that his form of attack about you haven't really changed is him using his power to push and prod Rain at exactly the part where he's least comfortable with himself.
And he does like kind of, archly say something to Victoria, but it's not like calculated to do damage. It's more like he sees what's going on with her.
Yeah.
I think we'll get to that pretty soon, actually.
Yep.
So Victoria then fights Lionwing like she'd fight herself. And then she ends up nearly ripping the woman's arm off. And then after that, she smashes her head into the ground twice.
Yeah. We can't risk it. Like, I don't know. It's like, I can't take her prisoner. I don't have it. Smash.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if Victoria has like a little, like thinks humans are tougher than they are because she has a force field. Because like when you smash a person's head against the ground, that can just kill them.
It definitely can.
Like,
I mean, knocking someone out is not good for them.
No,
just generally.
No, it's bad. It's bad. It's bad for your brain. You can accidentally crack the skull easily.
Yeah.
People can die of just having a cracked skull. Doesn't even need to like be that like caved in or anything. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad news, Victoria.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when she returns to Cretan's arena, she finds her team in a bad state. Ashley is unconscious. Moose is laid out. Mark is injured, and another Harbinger is down.
Yeah, and it's strongly hinted at here. The thing I really jumped on is that the reason why perhaps Ashley was defeated is because she couldn't bring herself to kill, quote, the other horned guy in armor.
Uh-huh.
So she saw Cretan as a very similar to our boy Bob, and and couldn't bring herself to do it. Which again, I think is us circling around this Ashley damsel situation, and how the choices that Ashley has made have left her cape-wise less effective, right?
Yeah.
But unarguably a better person.
Right. Like the what damsel might call weaker, but that was part of the, like, that's kind of part of the bargain. Like I think the thing is that Ashley knows that, like she understands that. It's not a surprise to her, right? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm like of everyone, I think I'm most excited to see like where Ashley is at after this arc.
Yeah, and you and I were talking about this earlier today when we were kind of going over these chapters in preparation for the show, and I think I'm much more tentatively optimistic about Ashley than you are. Like, I worry that there's a potential that like the frustrations with feeling ineffectual as compared to her sister will lead her, or could possibly lead her to feeling like she made the wrong choice in the bargain. Could possibly like she looks at here's all the things damsel can do and is able to do, and here's the way I just see myself fail again and again and again, and get to a point where she's so frustrated that she decides that this person I become is a mistake. I'm not necessarily saying that's what's going to happen, but that it was in the back of my mind, and I think you're much more gung-ho on no, it's just showing how much better she is than damsel.
Yeah, I mean, I think in our chat earlier, I was focusing more on like the fact that those things are frustrating to her, but now she has like loved ones and friends and people who she can rely on, and people who rely on her now,
Right?
And like that feels better than like being the most badass person who can blow people away.
Yeah.
And like that's part of her change, is like shifting as a person to someone who gets her self regard from that identity. And I guess it's almost like it's one of those things where it's just like, well, I'll be really sad if you're right, so you're wrong.
I want your way. Like I do think it's right, and I think there is textual support for that, because I think you're right that at every moment where damsel is being like specifically annoying, either Victoria is telling her to stop, or Swansong is like looking towards Victoria, as if to reestablish the connection between these two people, and how much better this is than being that. So it could be.
Yeah, cool. So at this point, having kind of destroyed everyone, Cradle offers a deal: give up Rain and he'll back off and let them retreat. Victoria says yes, which Rain doesn't entirely like, and maybe we can talk in a second about whether she was like, whether that was a ruse or not. But anyway, she says yes. He compares himself to always being the guy on the tracks. Explicit trolley problem reference for the first time in Parahumans. Says one person is strapped to the railroad track, everyone else is strapped to the other. The trolley is coming. Do I pull the switch? Rain asked, bitter. Except I'm the one guy. I've always been the one guy. I get people who say they care about me, but they always end up on the other goddamn track.
Yeah. It's never other people pulling the switch to sacrifice themselves for him. It's always people asking him to pull the switch to sacrifice himself for those other people, always. Which, I mean, like, he's kind of right. I think he's being like, he's very pissed off. We have to remember he's Red Rain right now. And he also is exhausted and exasperated. So I think he's overblowing this feeling, but there is multiple times when at least people are like, look to Rain and be like, come on, you gotta be willing to do this. And how just inherently exhausting that must feel at some level. It's like, it always comes down to like, give up Rain and everyone else will be saved.
Yeah. Well, anyway, at the end of this chapter, hopefully that dynamic is over.
Yeah, we'll see, though. Hope so. Because that was the same thing with Love Lost, right? Love Lost basically the same thing. Like, give us this one, and your other people will go free. Yeah. And they're like, okay, fine. He's like, no, come on, I don't want to. Yeah. I don't want to pull that. I don't want to pull that thing again.
Yeah, right. I mean, I love that the trolley problem is finally explicitly mentioned in Worm, after like everyone talking about trolley problems and Worm being an example of trolley problems. But this is not just a trolley problem, because in the trolley problem, you're pulling the switch, making the choice about other people. And what Rain is saying here is like, I am the one guy on the track, and I'm also the one who's given the choice to pull the switch.
Right.
Which is not the trolley problem. That's a much more self-sacrificing and difficult, complex choice. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not even like Rain pulls the switch, right? Like at the end of the day here, he does it again. he's willing to pull that switch. And there are heroes out there that will pull that switch all day long. I think Taylor was a person that would have pulled that switch on herself a bunch. I think Victoria would do the same thing. I think Rain's frustration is it seems like he's always pulling the switch for someone else. No one's ever pulling the switch for him. And
yeah,
that's not fair.
Right.
Why aren't the people that say they care about me pulling switches for me?
Right. Yeah. But I mean, that's kind of what happened, sort of.
Sure.
Because
that's being a hero, right?
Yeah. So prior to that, though, we get this exchange. I'm just going to read the whole thing, honestly.
Do it.
So Victoria is going after Cradle verbally, and he says, "I tried. More than you know I tried. Once powers came into it, I physically could not try anymore. Once he came into it. I know people who couldn't help but kill, but they found coping mechanisms." "How long did it take them to figure it out?" Cradle asked. "How many deaths?" I didn't respond. "I haven't killed anyone," he said. "Not with these hands. Believe me, I'm coping." "You're fucking awful at coping," I said. "Aren't we all?" he asked, and for maybe the first time ever, he sounded weirdly amused.
Oh man, fuck Cradle.
Yeah, so much happening here. I mean, like, so I read, so like, interestingly, he's tipping his hand to like knowing their secrets, because like he knows, he seems to know here that Sveta killed like a ton of people. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he knows that Victoria is fucking awful at coping.
Yeah.
I love the verbiage of "I haven't killed anyone, not with these hands." The fixation on hands,
Right.
Being a very Cradle thing.
Yeah, it's just so once again, it's all Rain's fault, right? Once powers came into it, once he came into it, I physically could not try anymore. Does anything that we saw in his interlude make that true? Like,
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, interestingly, I think I notice, when I was collating all of the question answers, I noticed that I think people seem to have legitimately irreconcilable reads on that chapter. Like some people think, some people are more willing to cut him slack because they sort of take him at his word more than others. But like I agree with you actually that there's nothing in that chapter that makes me think that he just didn't have a choice.
Yeah. I mean, like, again, we have to say he was dealt a bad hand. Living his life with his disorder is harder, and then you have shards come in and fuck it all up and make that even harder than it was. Certainly. And he certainly cannot be held responsible for the disorder that he was genetically given, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not fair. But we are people that live in this world and we make choices, and we have to own up to them. Even if the reason why we were set on this path is not one that we chose.
Yeah.
And I see a Cradle here that is pushing off responsibility. That is, it's not even just like, it's not my fault because Rain did it. I didn't actually do anything that bad anyway, even if it was my fault. I haven't killed anyone. This is how I cope. Uh-huh. Everyone copes their own way. Some people cope, and while they're trying to cope, they're killing each other. I'm not doing that. So it's not my fault. But if it was, it's not that bad. And
oh my God,
everyone's awful.
It's the narcissist prayer. That didn't happen, and if it did, it wasn't that bad, and if it was, that's not a big deal, and if it is, that's not my fault, and if it was, I didn't mean it, and if I did, you deserved it.
Exactly. And that, I think, at the end of the day, is one of the big things that we're exploring with Cradle. This idea of personal responsibility, this idea of taking control of your future. And we talked, second chances to start, like, everyone got a chance to start over and make progress. And some people chose to do that. And it's hard for people, and people fail, and we mess up. And look, Cradle might have a hand that's shittier than a lot of other people's. But they still they still did the stuff.
Yeah.
And he's not interested in owning up to any of that.
Yep. And I mean, I think in a little bit we're going to talk about like, well, the difference between him and Rain, and plus we're going to have plenty of time to talk about that during the Q&A, I think.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, no, absolutely. So just as she hears Cradle exit the maze, or she detects the maze exit opening, she and Sveta sprint into the attack immediately without even saying anything. And I love this sentence so much. But for the rainfall patter of Sveta's tendrils on the walls of the station, we were silent as we darted after Cradle.
Oh, I love it. This is a really great moment because I think this is once again the book being fully aware of our awareness of the breakthrough has been losing a whole bunch.
Yeah.
So like our characters have been losing every battle they fought, and even if they snatch a win, it's taken away from them so quick. And so we're in this moment where we're like, wait, they're going to lose again? Seriously? This is really, and like in this moment, Victoria is as angry and frustrated about their string of losses as we, the reader, are, right? And so she goes back to her old standby line. She goes, he wins? Fuck that.
Yeah.
And we know exactly when Victoria says fuck that, we know exactly what that means. Some shit's about to go down.
Yep. It's the great Victoria quote on her yearbook page.
Yeah.
So there's like 400 awesome things that happen in the next 10 seconds.
Yes.
So Sveta grabs Rain, hurls him to safety, trusting his momentum canceling power to save him. Then she tries to grab everything no jutsu on Cradle, forcing Cretan to shield him with the wall. Victoria thinks to herself that her plan had been to just go for it and trust the team.
Yeah. And okay, so first of all, we have Sveta doing her capture the flag routine again, which is, I think, that's the third time we've used that, and I love it. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that plan, though. Trust the team, right? She says in this moment that I was going to trust that if they won, they would take down the barriers. The barriers were called, and everyone outside the maze would come help out. That doesn't happen, but it doesn't matter because I had Sveta, my best friend, who was more trustworthy than I was. And Chastity, who earned another so very important friendship in Cassie, was in the station. And so it's like this idea that she's just willing, she doesn't even give an order. She's just willing to trust that she knows these people and she knows what is motivating these people to do things. And that motivation is friendship. That motivation is community. That motivation is caring for people. The reason Chastity's here, Chastity, who was hesitant to enter the maze before, the reason she's here is because her friend's in there and she's got to help her friend. And it's community, it's teamwork, it's friendship, it's a group coming together, and she's willing to trust that, to trust in that. And that's her plan. And it works.
Yeah, it works great. Chastity, who, like you said, wasn't in the maze, she grabs the whip as Cradle emerges, and she used her penchant with whips to cut Cretan in half. And as a perfect grace note to what you were just saying about friendships and working together in community, Victoria says, all alone, because that's what happens when you act like an asshole.
Probably gonna get copyright flagged, but worth it.
Worth it, I guess. I don't know that reference. So
the name of the song is Karma Chameleon, and karma just came back to bite Cradle in the ass, Matt.
I gotcha.
It's very obvious.
Well, I mean, now sure, okay.
Yeah, Cradle was wrong. Karma exists, Matt, and karma's name is Victoria fucking Dallin.
That's wonderful.
I love this moment. So this is everything. This is it's a conclusion of Cradle's arc. It's a conclusion of everything we've been talking about how teamwork is done, how you organize. It's like leadership, teamwork, community, like what goes around comes around. It's all this coming together in this one moment. And I love in this moment, Matt, right before she says this to him, when Cradle realizes that Cretan is down and he's all alone, he touches his headgear, he touches his hair, almost as if to grab and check for those glasses, right? One more time to go back to that old tick and check for his glasses. He realizes that how fucked he is.
Yeah, that's great. I can't believe I didn't put that together. I feel like an idiot. Yeah, he was definitely, it was definitely that tick.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. But no, like, I mean, I think it's a good moment because like he's still kind of a cool cucumber even in this moment. Like you don't feel like he's quite beat. And I just love how, just how the scene winds down because Cretan, won't let him escape because now he's maimed. And so he forces Cradle to reverse the severing, in order to let him escape. So Cradle finally does it. And we realize that you can indeed reverse the severing, revealing it to be more like a portal than a true cut, such that the severed extremities are just like pulled through the portal and then they kind of grow out of the wound, which I actually kind of predicted, but I don't think that's that hard of a prediction if you think that that's like how disjoint's power works.
Did you predict that? That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
it's probably back in the chat when I had it muted.
It is, yeah, and then I later bragged about it shamelessly.
Of course you did.
But yeah, because I was basically like, the limbs would just die of like oxygen deprivation unless there were like nutrients getting to them, and like Tattletale wouldn't be able to talk if there wasn't like air being teleported to her mouth, and like just like it doesn't really make a lot of sense if somehow like substances aren't being transported between the limbs. I don't know. Anyway, I'm being way too in the weeds here, but
you scienced it.
Yeah, the point is that I was like, it's got to be portals, otherwise it just won't work. So.
Yeah, and I mean, what I love about this is this super matters. So, like, Cretan is his final ally, right? He's all Cradle has, and here at the end, the second he's hurt, he turns on his boss and says, "No, you're not going anywhere unless you tell me, unless you heal me." And of course, it is the act of Cradle having to acquiesce to a former employee, to someone who was loyal to him, probably through manipulation, through fear, not through friendship, not through any kind of real community. It is that person turning on him the second the chips were down that makes him use the healing, the reversing switch thing, which is what allows Kenzie to get an image of it, which is exactly what makes them not need Cradle. So the entirety of his plan is ruined by the betrayal of the quote unquote betrayal of his own person. So just to incentivize and draw attention to the fact that leadership and community and friendship and coming togetherness through the methods that Victoria and her team did it is infinitely better than manipulation and fear and everything that Cradle did.
Yeah, because when you act like an asshole, that's what happens.
Should I play the song again?
No.
No.
I don't want to have to edit it out when we get copyright flag.
We're not. It's gonna be fine. It'll be fine.
Okay. So Victoria then chases Cradle out of the portal to Gimel, only to find himself face to face with Beaker or Mortar or whatever.
Whatever we're calling it.
Yeah, a small crowd of capes. Victoria, with shaking hands, reaches out to Kenzie, who has captured the signal that Cradle used to reverse the severing effect.
I don't know about you, Matt, but I didn't realize how much I missed Kenzie until I was going to say heard her voice, but read her voice.
Yeah. Well, yeah, her voice comes across strongly even in text.
It really does.
And we were first introduced to her via text. So
that's true. And yeah, I missed her. I missed her around, and it becomes so apparent how much I missed her as soon as we have this moment. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. And that wraps up the chapter.
Yeah. With the best line ever. No, I don't think we need him. Fuck you, Cradle.
Yep. Hand him over to those harbingers.
Yep. Oh God, maybe not, dude. Oh God.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone deserves that.
I know. So, all right. A quick name game, I guess. Well,
let's talk through. I mean, I think this is important to our discussion question this week. So I want to kind of talk through each member of Breakthrough, right?
Okay. Sure.
Maybe we can just do that in the discussion question part. Yeah, let's just do that.
We can work it in. Yeah.
So yeah, let's do name game.
So you said, like, do we know why this is called Heavens yet? and I mean, like there's a lot of little things. Like Brian actually mentions heaven when he's talking about like people doing good things so they can go to heaven and avoid hell. Victoria spends a lot of time flying. There's a lot of flying fights. There's a lot of people with horns in this story, and it makes me and she calls Cradle a demon. So it just made me realize there's actually like there's way more people with horns in Ward than there were in Worm. And I made a list earlier, but then I didn't copy it over here. But there's like at least 6 capes with horns, and so there's a lot of like devil imagery, which kind of goes with the chapter called Heavens. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. There may be more to come, but I there's definitely a few mentions in there.
Yeah.
We I don't think we have an answer here, but we were talking about Myosha, and like we couldn't. I googled it and I just couldn't find anything other than like there's a river in Russia.
Yeah, the Myosha River is in Russia.
But why is it in all caps? And then you said like maybe it's because it's like OSHA,
the Occupational Safety and Health Administration.
Right, and it's like related to like her being a giant occupational hazard or something.
Yeah,
like
OSHA is the government organization that handles basically workplace injuries.
Yeah.
And she like blows up machinery. So it's like she's my OSHA violation. Which is like hilarious and clever. I don't know if that's what it's supposed to be or not.
I don't either. I mean, it's yeah.
In my head, it is.
Right. It's funny because this time we're not like, here's the hidden meaning of the name. We're like, I don't know, but here's some funny ideas.
Yeah. I mean, there is a specific reason it's all caps, right? Like there's like if we just wanted to be a reference to a Russian river, which it's very hinted that she like this is a bunch of Russian capes, right? So it would make sense for it to be a reference, but why capitalize it, right?
Right, exactly.
And that's where my brain went.
I like your connection. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll find out, I'm sure.
Sure.
All right, let's do discussion question. This is going to be quite a one of those. So the question last week was, is Cradle to blame for the things he's done? Why or why not? And the answers were yes, yes, no, yes, yes, no, no, yes. And that's all we got for you this week on We've Got Ward.
All right, let's move on.
Just kidding. So y'all wrote extraordinarily long essays. So the best I'm going to be able to do is to sketch out some of the high-level points that were made by each of you.
Yeah, and I want to say before we get into this that there is no wrong answer to this question. Matt, I'm really not saying that for anyone but you, Matt. There's no wrong answer to this question, Matt.
Okay.
Matt?
I'll be good.
All right, so first up we have Megafire, who explores what it means to be quote-unquote good, pointing out how Ryan for a long time chose to do the right thing, not out of a sense of empathy, but out of self-interest, and how maybe all that matters is that from the outside, he was doing good and avoiding bad. Megafire then goes into the idea that the Dream Room is a particularly cruel shard intervention that basically serves as the opposite of therapy. I like that.
Yeah, I think there's kind of a couple of genres to these answers. One of the genres is yes, of course he's to blame, and here's why. The other genre is what is blame really?
Right.
And this is one. Megafire was one of the. What is it to be good, really? What is right and wrong?
Well, I think we specifically put blame in quotes there because we wanted to kind of invite that kind of inspection.
Yeah, right.
Because blame is one of those words that means many things.
Yes. Farm Fresh Hornets has the best name ever and starts by saying yes. But this is the kind of thing that needs to be assessed on a case-by-case basis. Cradle lacks empathy, but he understands moral and legal rules. He deserves blame because he knows that people will find his actions monstrous if he gives in to his desires. Farm Fresh Hornets also reminds us that Cradle had rain bleeding out on the floor of a barn in the Fallen raid, and he could have ended all this if he hadn't wanted to go the extra mile and just torture him.
Which is interesting, right? Why did he do that?
I don't know.
Is it literally what we learned later that he was trying to he wanted to drain Rain, similar to the way he drained Love Lost and Colt. Was that his ultimate goal with Rain? Actually, not just to kill him, but to drain him of his power first.
I mean, it kind of makes a lot of things make more sense that way, because he hired Operator Red, right?
Yeah.
Like Cradle could have just crushed him like instantly with the giant invisible like mech thing that he had in the room. But instead he uses Operator Red, who's like an expert at cutting people apart while not killing them. So that makes perfect sense to me, that he would have this guy there on staff specifically to make him bleed out without killing him. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. Yeah, cool.
So Murroyd, brings up free will. It's your favorite topic, Matt, and chooses to draw a line of personal responsibility around a mental decision engine that makes choices, and that you can assign credit and blame to this decision engine. Therefore, Cradle is responsible for his own choices, and a lot of them are very bad. Thus, he is to blame.
Yep.
So it's that decision engine's fault.
Yeah. I mean, basically, this is one of the, I think one way that people try to bring some kind of coherence to the idea of blame is to say, like, I'm gonna pick a part of the human and say that is you, and then we can coherently say that you are to blame, because otherwise, if you don't know where to draw the line around a person, then the concept of blame doesn't quite add up.
Sure.
But, yeah. FIP Industries discusses how they empathize with Cradle quite a bit. They say that Cradle can't be blamed any more than you can blame a feral dog for biting or a child for being childish. Of course, this doesn't mean that he shouldn't be stopped, but it does seem like blame is the wrong word. There were a couple of people who said that they, and this is Matt talking now, there were a couple of people who said that they can relate to Ryan. And I think that everyone kind of can, because like every child starts out with minimal empathy, and it takes until like your early 20s to fully develop your prefrontal cortex. So for a big chunk of our lives, we're on this continuum of being at least somewhat lacking in empathy and kind of gradually turning it on. And I think some of us take longer for it to turn on than others, actually.
Yeah.
So I think saying that you empathize with Ryan's character is maybe even typical. I don't know. I mean, I kind of did, like I don't now, but like I can remember a kind of feeling like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, and I really appreciated, I mean, I like all our answers, but I really appreciated the answers where people were very like upfront and honest about, the parts of themselves that they see in this character. And I think it's hard sometimes to admit things about yourself that you might not be proud of, or that you struggle with. Right.
Yeah.
And I think it was it's very cool when you see people, willing to bring these things out and discuss them and talk about those things that they struggle with and how they related to the character struggling with them, and how that helps inform their view of blame and responsibility and all these things. I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, me too.
I was kind of touched that people are willing to, explore themselves publicly like that. Yeah,
me too. That was one of the ways in which I was surprised by the answers that we got.
Yeah. Because I don't think Cradle is there's not like one side of this, right? Like Cradle is a unique case with unique issues and unique problems, but there are people that suffer from things similar to him and have difficulties in their life that are similar to the way he processes information.
Sure.
And, I think it's cool hearing from those people.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry, that was an aside.
Sure.
Sarah Penguin agrees that blame doesn't seem like the right word, but responsible might be more accurate. He has no choices about what emotions he can feel. He didn't choose parents who were perfect enablers. Sarah goes on to sketch 4 Cradles. Worst baby in the world, Cradle who doesn't understand consequences. Young teen Ryan, starting to understand consequences and the value of doing nice things for others. Post Gold Morning, pre-trigger Ryan, who has internalized the value of doing nice things and avoided bad things. And lastly, post-trigger Cradle, who gets knocked down and decides to drag everyone else with him.
Yeah,
there are 4 Cradles. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of how it's broken up textually too. Not precisely like that, but it's a good way of explaining his trajectory there.
Yeah, and I think Sarah Penguin channels what I think the book concludes on, right? That blame might not be right, but taking responsibility might be more apt.
Yeah. Benthic Kraken says, yes, absolutely. They focus specifically on the fact that Cradle is certainly wrong to blame other people for his choices. Like that's definitely wrong. There was nothing about his power compelling him toward violence in the same way that, for example, Rachel or Noelle were. Benthic Kraken describes Cradle as a classical tragic hero whose tragic flaw is his inability to trust others, because if he had just told his clustermates how the personality bleed worked, then at least Snag and Love Lost could have helped him with it. And I thought that was really interesting, this idea that the problem isn't that he's like a violent, monster. It's that if he had just reached out to people like his old friends or his clustermates, then they could have helped him through this challenge that he was facing, and he could have solved it without any violence.
Yeah, I think you're right, because one of the things we do see, or one of the things I think we're forced to conclude, is he makes his most progress when he's around those two people that he ends up calling friends, right?
Yeah.
That is when he makes his most progress. So being around genuine people that care about you and are friends with you and can aid you no matter what kind of disorder you have. And he chose not to do that. He chose to manipulate instead of cultivate. And that is very true. Maybe those people could have worked through. Was it Megafire that called it inversion of group therapy? But it could have been a group therapy, right? These people could have sat around a table every night and talked about their shit, because they get to do something that no one else gets to do. They get to experience things through each other's eyes.
Yeah.
And that could have been a path to real kind of community and them coming together. But Cradle manipulated that and controlled that and changed the dreams and manipulated the dreams. And yeah,
I like that. Cool.
Faye Dragon also mentions empathizing somewhat with Ryan, specifically lacking motivating feelings of morality. But they say Cradle definitely has a functioning sense of morality, to the extent that he has successfully lived a very moral and upstanding life for a very long period of time. And in the end, Cradle chose to undo his growth, to work against the moral sense he had cultivated, despite this not really being necessary. So, despite emphasizing with Cradle, Faye Dragon says, yeah.
I like that answer. I like this idea that regardless of whether he found the moral feelings motivating, he clearly understood them because he demonstrated them via his life. I like that.
Right.
Hero of Old Iron contrasts Rain and Cradle and says, I'm going to quote this bit here, the question that needs to be answered before you can blame either of them is at what point they were able to make a fully informed choice with an awareness of the consequences of their actions. And I think for both of them, that point comes when they're first confronted by the guilt they face from what they're doing. And then he goes on to say that the critical juncture where Rain at the critical juncture, Rain decides to try to make up for what he's done, and Cradle immediately decides that he's going to kill everyone so he doesn't have to feel bad anymore. So yeah, it's the decision they make when they're facing their own feelings that actually matters. I think that's pretty interesting. I like
the way he framed that a lot.
Yeah.
Kausubalu says, of course, but also he's not solely responsible. He probably has a diagnosed personality disorder, didn't have a proper support from family or institutions, and then got fucked by the shard. So kind of.
Yeah.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at.
There were also, I noticed there were a lot of answers where the person would begin their answer by saying, yes, of course he's to blame. And then over the course of the next 14 paragraphs, their answer would become increasingly hedged and nuanced and,
right.
and kind of end with so in the end, we live in a society. Bisexual Punch Party says, of course, no one was forcing him to commit those actions, and he knew he knew what their consequences would be. Even the shard is merely whispering and nudging, not magically erasing agency. So this is certainly the most like straightforward interpretation of blame, of just like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, of course he's to blame.
Yeah.
Who else would be?
Sure.
Yeah.
Regvlas says, yes, unless you're going to argue that nobody is really to blame for anything. Shut up, Matt. The point they point out all of the many options Cradle actually had laid out in front of him, including getting help with his issue from any number of corners. But instead, he chose to solve it in a violent way that didn't involve asking anybody for help. And I think this harkens back to Benthic Creighton's post about his flaw being an inability to trust. Yeah, that's very true. That's those are very similar answers. That Victoria's reach out is not part of Cradle's mantra.
Oh yeah, good point.
To his detriment.
Yeah, I like that. I like that connection there. Stelhex explores blame as a social mechanism that promotes beneficial behavior and mitigates bad behavior. We only levy blame when that corrective effect can actually apply, which is why we don't blame people who are mind controlled, for example. We do blame Cradle because he's demonstrated an ability to change, and yet his choice was to choose the bad path.
Yeah. I like that as a very functional societal view on what blame is.
Yeah, I actually kind of prefer that as like the way that I prefer to use the word is like as a mechanism. Yeah.
Yeah. Couture says it's worth acknowledging that Ryan had to do a lot of work to overcome the hand he was dealt. They point out that Rain is an excellent foil here because Rain grew up in a terrible situation and absorbed terrible beliefs, but now suffers intense guilt about those actions because of who he intrinsically is. Rain was innately good with bad surroundings. Cradle was innately, quote-unquote, bad with good surroundings. Both were shocked back into their natural state by the mall incident. That's good, and I'm glad we put "bad" in quotes here because it's a very subjective bad, right? Like I don't think we want to say that anyone with Rain's particular personality disorder is inherently bad. They are just different,
right? Yeah, and this almost to me this almost leaves. I mean, I'm someone who's like doesn't believe free will exists, but I still feel like this kind of leaves Ryan off the hook a little bit because, yeah, like he definitely didn't have to go back to being completely, remorseless, and destructive. But yeah, anyway. Jarls Arl says, yes, but it's not clear cut. A lot of the blame can be laid on a grasping self, but the way that Cradle reacts to feeling guilt from Rain's tokens is his own choice.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I think that's the central thing to me is the first time he felt emotion, his reaction to it was, nope.
Right. Yeah, I mean, but and my thing there is like I'm not sure. Like this is one of those exact cases where I'm like I don't think it's your choice to react really strongly to bad emotions. Like I don't know. I guess that's where I differ from most people is what I call a choice. It's like, do you choose to feel bad? No. Do you choose to want the bad feelings to go away? No. That's natural and automatic. If you've never have experience dealing with this kind of bad feelings before, then can you be blamed for like going with the first response that comes to your mind?
Yeah, but what if the first response that comes to your mind is kill all those people to make the feelings go away?
Well, that's the thing is it's like, and I think somebody later on is going to give the answer that I would give, so I don't want to get to it prematurely.
Okay,
but
well, let's just,
Okay, sure.
I lost for you. Wolf Tamer 9?
Yeah.
Wolf Tamer 9 says, yes, people can't be held accountable for the people society or inescapable parts of nature turn them into, but must be held accountable for the things those people do. Not sure I can justify this with any underlying logic, except for the fact that we wouldn't have a functional system of morality otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's, again, this sort of like mechanistic explanation of like, look, this is just how things have to be, or the whole world breaks down.
Yeah.
Which I think actually makes sense.
Yeah, which is why I like your opinion on free will, and on blame and all these things, like theoretically, but I think once we start getting into like day-to-day decision making, it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
Because it's
yeah. And the thing is, I probably would make exactly the same choices as you when it comes to like what to do about a given bad act or bad actor
Right.
in my personal life. But so ultimately, what's the point? The point is to just understand like what it is to be a person.
Yeah, and I
And
mean those
yeah.
things might broadly make you be able to empathize with people that you normally wouldn't be able to, right?
Yeah, that's a big part of it too. You're just like, well, I mean, yeah, precisely. So we're already to the question that I wanted, to the answer that I was referencing. So
Okay.
here's Placid Platypus. So they say the correct truth,
So you're just passing judgment there. Okay.
which is that blame or responsibility isn't really a coherent concept, and that edge cases like this are good for showing exactly why that is. Cradle made bad choices, but those choices were influenced by many factors well outside of his control. So, what does it mean to say he is to blame? Should he be punished? Is a bit more of a clear-cut question, and the answer to that is probably yes. And I mean, I like this is literally the answer that I would have given. Should he be punished? While not 100% clear cut, is much more clear cut than is he to blame? And partly because, like you said at the very top, like blame is just not a term that is that solidly defined.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of has their own little mental model of how that works, as we're seeing in these answers.
Yeah. I mean, I think the dictionary definition says to assign responsibility, right?
Yeah.
And that, I mean, even responsibility is a word that, I mean,
Right.
the problem is that doesn't
Yeah.
push, it doesn't like clarify anything.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, specifically one thing I like about this answer is to say like this Cradle situation is exactly the kind of edge case that you would bring up if you were like having a philosophical debate about the concept of blame. And you'd say like, well, do you blame someone who blah, 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 and therefore they made some terrible choice when they really couldn't have made any other choice? And it's like, well, at that point, the word just sort of ceases to mean anything.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
anyway.
Liquid Ben frames the question of blame as one where you essentially account for the influence of outside factors, such as alien-based death powers and personality disorders, and possibly count them towards clemency, but they don't erase the sin. So basically, like, when deciding whether you're going to blame something or not, your final conclusion includes all these things, and whether or not. So their definition of blame encapsulates all of those things that we've been talking about. It's included in their definition.
Yeah, yeah, and the idea of clemency implies like you're not just assigning blame, you're also deciding on what the consequences are going to be.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me. Anti-Chris, last answer, says yuppers. Also, they remind me that Ryan may be the only person this arc to explicitly reference heaven. So thanks for that. And the place people are trying to get to by doing good things, and that's why they do good things. Anyway, Anti-Chris makes a really excellent point, which is that if Ryan's framework for dealing with upsets to his life was this fragile, then even if cultists and shards hadn't come along to ruin his day, something else probably would have eventually.
Yeah, that's true.
And they finish up by saying Cradle was inevitable. To which I can't help but respond, if it was inevitable, then how can he be to blame? But anyway.
Yeah. Like, Matt, if Judas was destined to betray Jesus,
then how can we be mad at him?
Why we hate Judas so much?
Yeah.
If his betraying of Jesus made the crucifixion happen,
which absolved us all of our sins.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is so confusing.
It is confusing. It's really confusing. And that ends our Bible study.
This is why when we start talking about determinism or free will, my head just starts hurting.
I know. It's good. It's a good pain. Work through it.
All right.
Yeah.
Great questions, everyone. Thank you so much. This section took a while this week, but I think it's okay. It's a complicated issue, and we appreciate all you guys' attempts to explore it in your own way. Once again, even though Matt said otherwise, there was no right answer to that question.
I mean, I think it's honestly more fun if I like inject my opinion.
I'm kidding. You have your belief system. I think it's great. I think you think about this a lot, and it's a very well articulated argument.
And the alternative would just be us like reading the answers and being like, good Good words, everyone. The end.
There, you heard it here first, guys. Good words, everybody.
Yeah, yep.
You keep on wording those words.
Yep. You do that thing more. So here's the new discussion question for this coming week. Breakthrough is in bad shape. Who is currently in the worst place?
Yeah, so I don't actually know if we want to go down these one by one. Maybe we'll let the question do that. But every single person on this team, Kenzie included, if you think about it, has suffered royally over the course of this arc. And who do you think is the worst off?
Yeah.
And why?
Yeah. Tell us all of the horrible things that are going on with everyone.
Yeah. It's a very uplifting question.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's do some March Madness.
Let's do it.
I'll let you drive because tell us I guess we can take turns on the results, right?
Yeah. So this week we're talking about the results of the Sweet 16. So there were 8 matches we have to go through, and we will start with the first one.
All right.
We will start with, and I just lost the page. I opened this up before we started, so I wouldn't do this, and now I'm doing it.
Well, from last week, the Aleph bracket was Skitter versus Jessica Yamada.
Yes, thank you. So we'll do some comments first, right?
Okay.
So,
sure.
Chubbs says there's always a need for a therapist over a predator. So they voted for Jessica Yamada. Thunderbutter, these names are wonderful, says therapy power is the most necessary power in the universe. Jessica also has the unique power to realize she has possibly made a mistake and take steps to correct it instead of only realizing it when it's too late, which is a dig on Taylor. So 2 people in the comments obviously were Team Jessica on this. Unfortunately, Matt, Team Jessica did not win the day. Skitter, our number 1 overall seed, picks up this one 74% to 26%. Not very close. Not very close,
and not terribly surprising that the protagonist would beat the psychologist who appears in like 2 chapters. But
but people really like Jessica.
They do. That's true. The next matchup was Clock Blocker versus Contessa.
And we have Iron saying, "Guess this clock is finally getting blocked." King Bob says Dennis is second best boy and I love him. # bring back Clock Blocker. And Thunderbutter once again says the issue with Contessa is that she is too little of a character. So we have some clear fans of Clock Blocker, some clear fans of Jessica here, and the vote reflects that, Matt, because this was a close one.
Yeah, very close. 53%. Yeah, 53% in favor of Clock Blocker.
So Dennis wins and advances to the Elite 8. The path to victory for Fortuna did not exist.
It's good. Somehow she's going to pull it out, though, right?
Yeah, suddenly she'll be in the Final 4 and we'll be like, wait, what?
Right. Next bet bracket.
Oh, boy. This is a tough one.
Oh my goodness.
This is a tough one, Matt.
This is terrible.
So the first matchup is Tattletale versus Bitch. Rachel versus Lisa. Oh, Matt.
Uh-huh.
This is we got Zing Stick says, "Thanks, I hate it." Kuchorchu says, "This was awful. I don't know who to blame for this, but somebody is surely to blame."
Yeah, I feel similarly responsible somehow.
Yeah. And Megafire says, "I absolutely adore Lisa, but I cannot in good conscience vote against Rachel," which was also my vote. I agreed. I voted for Rachel. But Matt, who won?
Tattletale won.
59 to 41%. Tattletale has been kind of dominating her votes, and I think this was the closest any of them ever got. I think Tattletale is going to have a road to the finals, and Rachel was the last best hope to stop her. But I don't think it's going to be happening.
Yeah, it is pretty close, actually. You're right. It's closer than Skitter and Jessica.
Yeah.
Very
sad.
Next bracket, Defiant versus Bonesaw. Just a wonderful matchup. Another pretty close matchup, actually. Any comments on this one?
Kyrgyzstan says that they're with you, that Worm wouldn't be Worm without Bonesaw. So they voted for Bonesaw.
Yep.
Andrew says, I love Defiant, but his reasons for being a dick are a bit less serious than restitching your dying parents over and over. Burr. So a lot of pro Bonesaw people here. Pro bono saw.
It's interesting how many comments we're getting from the losers.
I know.
Because yet again, Defiant takes it with 57% of the vote.
Yep. We do have Reisman who said Bonesaw is fantastic, but Defiant's arc is so good. But Bonesaw's interlude, I believe this decision right here might be my trigger event.
Awesome. The next bracket, the Gimel bracket, we had Dragon versus Glash de Guenye.
We don't have too much here. Thunderbutter says Ghosters before Toasters. Voting for Valkyrie. And Miko says AI with real personality and character development plus love story equal win. So we have 2 comments, one for Valkyrie, one for Dragon. Who won?
Dragon won with 72%.
Not close at all.
Yeah, I mean, after Valkyrie beat Vista, we were expecting maybe a stronger showing, but no, utterly crushed by the AI queen of dragons.
I feel like Vista might have done better in that vote.
Yeah, me too. Who do we blame for this?
You.
Yeah, I guess so. Next matchup, Regent versus Numberman.
Closer than I thought this one was going to be. We have one comment. It's from King Bob who says, Alec is best boy and I will hear no quarrels against him. # Shard Hell can bring him back.
Excellent.
Sure.
Yeah, Regent takes it with 56%, which is very close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Goodbye, Numberman.
Scrapes by.
Calculate this.
You didn't calculate your probability of winning accurately enough, Kurt.
All right, now we are moving on to the final area of the bracket, the Earth Shin bracket. This is the setup for the Dallin Bowl. First match. Is it going to happen? We have Imp versus Glory Girl.
I don't know. What do people say, Scott?
Flymite says, let the sisters fight. Cecilia says, chanting to myself, based solely on the information from Worm, based solely on the information from Worm, based solely on the information from Worm.
Well, it seems like a lot of people succeeded in that chant because Imp takes it with 63%. Kicking out Ward protagonist tragically. I guess I understand. I'm not mad, everyone. I'm just disappointed.
I suppose. And then finally, the final matchup of the Sweet 16 was also the closest matchup in all of March's Madness. We have Panacea versus the Seamerg. And Flymite is saying, Dallin Bull. Placid Platypus says, I am deeply disappointed at everyone who has voted for an Endbringer in this bracket. And in conclusion, with an astonishingly close vote, it ended up being, I think, less than 30 votes between the two. Panacea beats the Seamerg 51-49%.
Yep. So we've got in the next matchup, it's going to be Imp versus Panacea, which I wonder who's going to win that one.
Yeah, let's move right into making our selections for next week. We're in the Elite Eight. We got 4 matchups. Matt, Earth Aleph, the winner of the Aleph bracket, Skitter or Clock Blocker? Who you got? Who you gonna vote for?
I think I'm gonna go with Skitter. I mean, she's just awesome. She's just great. I just love her.
Well, in that case, I'm voting for Dennis.
You son of a bitch. Canceled out. We're now canceled out.
I think we should say something to those of you who have not voted yet. We're having a weird issue with this poll. It's bugged, but it seriously is though. I've put a direct link to the poll on the website, so if you go there and see some weird bugged version, click the link. You can vote there. Sorry about that. We literally don't know why this is happening.
Next matchup: Earth Bet, Tattletale versus Defiant.
Ooh, who you got, Matt?
I mean, I feel like this deserves just like a lot more thought than we have time to put in right now. like way more, because I mean, see, this is actually hard for me because I actually find them kind of interesting in the same way, where they're like complex. They've both got a lot of character flaws that they kind of like work to overcome, and maybe are more or less successful. I feel like if we're just sticking with Worm, I kind of want to go with Defiant. Maybe that's sacrilegious, but that's what my gut is telling me right now, and I've learned for all these years to go with my gut.
Well, I think, frankly, your gut has shit for brains.
You're gonna cancel me out again?
No, I'm not actually. Lisa's great. I like Lisa. Defiant. I'm a sucker for the Defiant like characters, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's the type of character I kind of gravitate towards, and I like him. I will never forget the fact that I called him the Tick like in the first time we met him.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be so much different. He was a wonderful surprise for me.
Yeah. It's interesting to me that like at this point the matchups are actually pretty hard, and it's forcing me to really consider like what I value in characters actually, because like before it was kind of obvious, it was kind of straightforward. Like obviously that character's better than this one, or I care about them more, or I see them as more complicated, obviously.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, we're getting to the end, and I'm like, well, these are all everyone on this list is a great complicated character. I really have to think about it.
Sure. Yeah. All right, Gimel, Dragon versus Regent. This should be an easy one for Matt. I bet I could predict exactly who he's going to
Already
vote
clicked on Regent.
for. Of course you did. I don't know. I think I'm going to go Regent, surprisingly. That's just like, as I was sitting here trying to make up my mind, Regent was playing in my head more than Dragon was for some reason. He deserves it. That heroic end, he deserves it.
I know. I feel like there are so many there's so many Regent scenes that just get me. Mm-hmm. And there are some with Dragon too, but I just I don't know. Regent just does it for me. Final matchup, Earthshin Imp versus Panacea.
I think, Matt,
we all know.
Amy's reckoning has finally come.
Yeah, I think we all know the answer to this question.
Amy has, out of any of the characters on this bracket, she's the one that has scraped by with the lowest percentage of votes so far.
And the thing is, I think she's a fantastic character.
Yeah, I love her.
This is almost for me entirely about who I like more. Definitely like it more.
Is that not what the whole thing is?
Well, see, part of my rubric is like I think I mentioned this last time. Like, how much would it harm the story if you just like magically erase this character from the story?
Sure.
And which is like a terrible Sophie's choice, actually. But like I in this case, I just like Imp. She's just fun. So. And I mean, in that sense, if you erased Imp from the story, then you'd actually be sucking a lot of the like levity out and the comic relief in a lot of scenes. So that would harm the story a lot. So It works in both ways.
Well, I just went to vote for Imp, and it told me, "Thank you, we have already counted your vote." So apparently, I voted on this one on Sunday, and I don't remember where I went. I think I went to Imp.
I would guess that.
Yeah. I love Aisha. Nothing would make me happier than seeing Aisha the winner of this tournament. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I hope so.
Yeah. My favorite thing in Ward is learning that that she took the name Imp despite the fact that someone else already had the name and she doesn't care.
It's so wonderful.
Yeah.
So that is our last matchup. Next week we will be at the Final Four. The way we're doing the Final Four is the winner of the Aleph match will play Gimel, and the winner of the Bet match will play Shin. So it's winner of Skitter Clock Blocker against Dragon Regent, and winner of Tattletale Defiant against winner of Imp and Panacea. And so that'll be our Final Four matchup. So not that should influence your vote in any way. Just pick between those the two. But that's the way it's going to shake out. So go ahead and vote. It's doofmedia.com/March Madness. Get your votes in. The poll closes on Sunday, and then we move into our final four. We're getting near the end. It's almost over.
Yeah.
So many dead characters.
So excited.
Tragic.
I know. Does everyone realizes they're dead, right? They're not coming back.
I've been emphasizing that March is brutally slaughtering them.
Yeah, I know. It's really sad. It's really painful that we were doing this, actually. So anyway, that's all we got for you this week on We've Got Ward. You guys are all part of this show, so feel free to provide us with advice, questions, or thoughts on this week's reading.
You can reach us via email at gotwormpod@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account @gotwormpod. My personal Twitter is @scottdaily85, and Matt's is @moredinamail. I did it.
You did it. If you're not already subscribed to We've Got Ward, we recommend you do so and never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much all the other podcasting platforms.
And as always, you can find this and all the other shows we do over at doofmedia.com. Head on over there. Check out our other Wildbow focus show, Deep Impact. Also check out our book club, which is meeting this Friday at 9:30 p.m. on the, what's that date? The 29th of this month to discuss Red Seas Under Red Skies, the second book in the Gentleman Bastard series. I'm excited for that talk, so make sure you guys attend that.
Yeah. We always have a great time in those. So yeah, please show up. And if you like any of our shows and want to support them, consider donating to our Patreon account, patreon.com/doofmedia. You can donate $1 a month or whatever else you can afford. Supporting us on Patreon gives you tons of great bonuses like voting in our quarterly fan art and costume contests, Q&A sessions, access to live streams of our recording sessions, and our excellent Discord chat. Special thanks this week to new Bedoofs, Eliana, and Ferdy, both at the $1 level.
Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, really appreciate that, and welcome to the Discord and so forth. Always,
the Doof Squad, Matt. Welcome to the Doof Squad.
The Doof Squad, yes.
God, it's like you don't even respect our brand.
It's very hard to keep track, but the point is that now we can talk to them on the Discord. And as always, make sure you go over to Wildbow's Patreon, patreon.com/Wildbow, and donate to him as well. This is his world. We're just playing in it.
And if you cannot afford to donate right now, that is absolutely okay. You can instead help us out by heading on over to Apple Podcasts and leaving us a rating and a review. This week's review comes from Modern Loki 21, who gives us 2 stars and says, I love Wildbow and the Parahumans world, so I was excited to find this, but I just can't. I listened to them talk for 10 minutes about how excited they are to talk about their analysis after reading 2 chapters. I really did try. Well, we appreciate you trying, Modern Loki. We thought you might have liked the show if you listened for more than 10 minutes, but we appreciate you trying. We said we were going to read the bad reviews too, Matt. We made a promise.
Yeah.
There were no more reviews, so it was time to read this one.
Yeah.
I don't agree with Modern Loki, but I respect your opinion, and I hope you enjoy reading this book elsewhere.
Yeah. I mean, since they're obviously listening, thank you for your thoughts.
Oh, they're not listening? Screw you, buddy. I'm just kidding.
All right.
I'm just kidding.
It's all good, all in good fun here.
Yeah.
All right. That's all for this week. Next week, we'll be back with more of Arc 12 Heavens.
Comma, chameleon. I thought it was comma chameleon for a long time. And then I was like, karma chameleon? Karma chameleon?